Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy HMK once again, and I'd like to welcome you all back into the fifth dimension. We've had quite a show when it comes to Tears of the Kingdom's gameplay, and we had a flurry of announcements and all sorts of fun reveals. But to talk about all of that, here I've put together one of the dream teams when it comes to Zelda content creators, ZeldaTubers, all here live on the fifth dimension. I'd like to introduce everyone one by one, but first I gotta make sure that they are ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and add Celtic. So, with the first content creator here on this amazing panel, everyone please welcome Celtic. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm not too bad. Yeah, I'm Celtic. I've been doing Zelda content for a long time now. I've been doing it since 2015, and it was kind of Zelda Wii U days. It was back on the speculation before Breath of the Wild.
The desert. So oh my goodness, don't remind me.
So it's kind of weird to be back again. It kind of feels like Groundhog Day, doing the same thing with Tears of the Kingdom. Now we're so close to release, and we're like zooming in on all the gameplay footage we've got. It feels like old times. It's great.
Yeah, nah, this is one of those times where I'm like, all right, it feels like the good old days once again. And I feel like we're gonna get those days like continue off into release, past release, DLC, and then maybe in the next Zelda game if we're all still alive and kicking. But here's to hoping. And it's good to have you on the show, buddy.
Thanks, man.
And next up, everyone, please put your hands together for Bandit Games. How you doing today?
You know, I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm doing swell. I'm doing swell. It was really nice finally meeting you in person at PAX.
Yeah, dude, likewise. And, you know, representing America and all that. You know, as amazing as that felt.
Right? We were like the only two ZeldaTubers in that Airbnb that was from America, huh?
Yeah, you know, there was also the representation for Zelda Universe there. We had Alex.
Oh, yeah, Alex was there, yeah.
So we had a little mini army. You know, people were scared. It was a fun time. But, no, I am just dripping with excitement for the game, as is everybody else. And I am super stoked to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. It's always good to have you around, man. I'm glad you came.
Of course.
Next up, everyone, please find your way through the maze from Monster Maze. How you doing today, Don?
Hello there. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, always fun to be here. And yeah, I'm Don, also known as Monster Maze, Zelda theorist extraordinaire. I'm kind of like the new kid on the block amongst the Zelda tubers, even though I'm the oldest. But, you know, yeah, that's me.
Oh, man, I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so glad, like, congratulations on all your success, man. Yo, like, it's been really, really fun getting to know you these past couple of years.
Oh, yeah, and PAX just rounded it perfectly.
Oh, that was such a fun time. Oh,
it's awesome meeting all of you.
Oh, man, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But let me go ahead and introduce the next person on this panel. Dr. Wiley, how you doing today, my friend?
Pretty good. Just living life, enjoying all the new footage, and looking how Ayanuma plays the game in an interesting fashion.
Man, I'm like, you know, leading up to this, I was like, you know, I'm waiting for that one piece of footage. I'm waiting. How is this going to be? Okay. And then after that gameplay footage, I'm like, all right, Tears of the Kingdom, 100%, 1,000, 1,000,000% hype. I'm ready for it. But thank you so much for being here, man.
So many cool things. I can't wait to talk about this stuff.
We're gonna talk about this. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be grand. But ladies and gentlemen, I left this member of the panel last, but definitely not least. I made sure to lead up to this one specifically. The amount of vindication is just radiating off of him right now through the microphone, through the earphones, through everything. Everyone, please welcome the Zonai prophet himself, Nintendo Black Crisis.
Hello there. Yeah, it's good to be here again. It's nice to have it's hilarious watching it, and like he picks it up and then he says, "Moving on." It's just,
Nah, same. Oh my goodness.
man. Yeah, it does feel really good. You know, I'm just happy that they have like an involvement in Tears of the Kingdom, because that's all I really wanted.
That's
You know?
all we all wanted, but man,
It's fun to theorize about it, but you know, even if it goes a way that we don't expect it, it's like there were so many people who thought, oh, it's ridiculous to even think that they'll be in, which I always thought was kind of a weird mindset, because, you know, in the first one we had like literally some of their architecture in there.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just nice that I'm really excited for the story. It's gonna be amazing.
oh man, all the connections that we're drawing that like basically confirms that everything we've been seeing throughout all the trailers up until now is like Zonai related. Oh, it's time. I can't wait to see how that pans out. Oh, excuse me. But there we have it. This is our panel of ZeldaTubers, Zelda Content Creators that will be joining me on this discussion for Tears of the Kingdom's gameplay. And of course, I'm your host and mediator, HMK, leader of the Fifth Dimension. And I will be doing my best in order to control this chaos in which we are going to be talking about the gameplay. But before I get straight into the noise, a couple of addendums. There are other members of the super secret Zelda club that want to be here, but of course they couldn't because they're either traveling or they were busy. This includes Alex from Zelda Universe, Conrad from Commonwealth Realm, and Zelda Master Luke. Unfortunately, they are traveling at the moment, so they couldn't be here, but they really, really want to be here. That's the first addendum. Second addendum is that I'm gonna put this rule for everyone here in the chat because I'm pretty sure we've all looked at them. We will not be discussing the art book leaks on this chat. All right, this will be directly talking about the gameplay that we've seen from Mr. Eiji Aonuma from that big presentation that we saw. So we're not going to be talking about any of the art book leaks. So if you guys are here for that, sorry. Now let's get directly into the noise. First off, like I gotta go around the room. We're gonna be starting with Zeltic with this one. We're gonna go from each member. What was your favorite thing? And one thing, so we can, get this train going. What was the one thing, your favorite thing that they showed off at the gameplay demonstration? Choose one.
All right. Yeah, you've made it tough saying choose one because I'm gonna have to be basic. I'm gonna have to say the thing that I'm pretty sure most people on this panel would agree with, and that's fuse. I think that whole mechanic is genuine. It is probably Tears of the Kingdom's biggest selling point.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't know, I've never seen anything like that in a video game. Obviously, I've seen games with pretty intricate crafting systems, but never one where you can literally walk up to a boulder with a stick, press a button
In real time.
Yeah, in real time. And if you look, when he fuses the stick with a log on the floor, he then moves to fuse something else, and you can see that the log stick has its own inventory icon.
Yeah.
So it's crazy the amount of combinations you're going to have. Because if you take every Breath of the Wild weapon, even just every Breath of the Wild weapon, not counting any new weapons we'll get, any materials like logs and rocks and things, if you combine them together, then that's already an insane amount of weapons. Because say if you only had 10 weapons and you could combine them with 10 other weapons, then that's 100 potential weapons. So if you think about all the different things we'll be able to use in this game, not just weapons that are actually meant to be weapons, but the things we can find in the world and turn into weapons, there's just going to be an insane amount of things. Like I can't quite wrap my head around quite how big that mechanic's going to be. So I think I'm going to have to be basic and go with fuse.
No, that's completely warranted because like I agree with you. It's gonna be like Tears of the Kingdom's biggest drawing point. And then I saw Dr. Wally's video today about like his combination ideas, and I'm like, yo, this game is gonna be insane. Like like how intuitive you can get with combining weapons, and not just things that are meant for weaponry like you said, but things that like you would obviously think isn't weaponry, but like could create like a very weapon-like system. I have my own video lined up for that, and oh man, I'm like one thing I'm already putting together, and it's not directly related to fusion, but it's similar. Like it's obviously similar because a lot of people are like, okay, there's the fuse mechanic and there's Ultra Hand, right? And I'm like, I'm sure we can do Ultra Hand and fuse together in the sense of like putting what would be weaponry, like sticking that to like contraptions. And I'm telling y'all right now, like I'm going to make a torture, like a torture dungeon, right? I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna make like a little house made out of logs, and I'm just gonna drop, and then it's gonna have like spikes and flamethrowers attached to it. I'm just gonna drop it on a bokoblin and like see what happens.
You're
And
sick.
Like it's gonna go down. Like
You'll be able to make anything. Like, you know, in Elden Ring, the Iron Maiden enemies.
Yeah,
I can't
yes,
quite remember
yes.
what they're called. Yeah, make something like that. You could. That's the thing. Like Breath of the Wild, the whole point is that you're meant to just kind of go off and be as creative as you can. It's kind of like, I don't like using the word much, but like sandbox, it is what it is to Zelda, right?
It is.
And now Tears of the Kingdom, they've fully just gone that, like, completely all the way down that road. And they're like, if you want a sandbox game, here's your sandbox Zelda. There's nothing we won't be able to do in this. I'm so excited for it.
Oh, it's gonna be good. And man, all those people that are saying just like, oh, DLC, I'm like, man, just shush. Shush. Like
The normal thing to do is create Breath of the Wild, and then if you want to do a sequel, the normal thing to do would be take the mechanics of Breath of the Wild and just give us a new world, right?
Right.
But then in the most Nintendo way possible, they've given us the same world again, but kind of replaced all the mechanics, which is like, that's completely a backwards way of doing it, but that's the most Nintendo thing I can think of, because they never do the thing you expect them to do.
Nope. And that's going to be a very interesting point of conversation that we're going to have later on the stream. But now I want to get to everyone else in this room. So now I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Wiley, because I know he's fidgeting right now. Wiley, what was your favorite thing? You got to choose one. All right. And it could be the same thing that Zeltic chose. But what was your favorite thing shown off in the gameplay demonstration?
Well, Giovanni, I'm glad you were the first one to act like a sociopath and not me. It's quite refreshing. Normally, I'm the crazy one.
No.
Like, oh, yes,
That's the most tame thing I got in my head, but I don't want to reveal too much.
I don't want to reveal too many sick fantasies, or the police will come knocking. I think my favorite thing will again be Fuse. I'm gonna be lame, just like Ed, just like Celtic. But specifically not like houses or like weird contraptions, but just weapons, because you can do so many, as in the video, like the video I made today, or the release today. I had a bunch of ideas in it that were already like pretty insane, like for example using octo balloons, which has so much potential, and same goes for the honey hive thing I had in mind, which is in the thumbnail itself. But that's just like, again, scratching the freaking surface, because it's not just the weapons or just sticks, but it's also like basically everything in your inventory and new stuff as they've shown off. So I think you can create some interesting weapons, strategies, like entire builds around it in a way that you couldn't do with Breath of the Wild. It had different weapons, but it's not like, oh yeah, I could really prepare for this crazy scenario. You could to an extent, but not to a great extent. But now Pandora's box has opened.
Ooh, I just, man, it was from this one gameplay video, this demonstration, that really made me like think, you know, the Thanos meme where he's like, oh, perhaps I treated you too harshly. It's like, okay, now I see what you guys have been cooking for 6 years. Like, I get it now. I see it. I've seen the light, you know, like and the fact that all of this has been running like almost like seamlessly with like almost no lag spikes, almost no frame rate dips. It's just insane to me that this is what they've been working on. And like you and Ed just said, like the sky is the limit. And if we still had strategy guides, that book is gonna be like a really fat book. It's gonna be like this big. Like, man,
it's gonna be a mega thick book, or like a gigantic website that will go on forever and ever, and probably has like one of those randomized buttons, which would be a lot of fun, actually. Somebody should make that, like a randomized button for like combining stuff in this game. Here, somebody, $1 million idea. Just place advertisements on the website and you'll make loads of money.
Yo, I don't look for, like, I feel bad for the Zelda Universe crew that's gonna have to make that giant spreadsheet of like fusible routes for the weaponry. I'm like,
God,
that's
the entire
good.
guide they will have to construct is gonna be nuts. And yes, like you said, like the fact that it runs so well, I am literally shocked by it. Like the Nintendo Switch has some capabilities, but it's also like very old, even for the time when it came out. and it does seem like they use some hidden loading screen techniques, like you
Yeah.
saw in games like God of War, with falling from the sky and going to the sky.
Yeah.
That seems to be like a bit of a hidden loading screen. But still, it's really impressive that the Nintendo Switch holds up so well. I mean, they have more time with the hardware, so they understand it better. But still, it's like the hardware inside from like 2015. It's crazy how good it runs, especially with all the complex stuff we're getting now.
The little console that could. That's what the Switch is.
The little console that could. NVIDIA, you did a good job.
Oh yeah, it goes a long way. Look, Nintendo finally using someone else's technology. Look how far you go. Just like put a little faith in other people. You know what I mean?
It's better.
Oh
With
my
the
goodness.
GameCube and the Wii, it was pretty awful technology, and now that they use NVIDIA for the first time ever, like somebody else's stuff, it's actually like really good. And then you look at the Joy-Cons, it's like, haha, we made these and they're problematic. It's like, surprise.
Wow. Oh my goodness. All right, yo, thank you so much for that insight, but I want to try and get everyone's like insight on this specific question because we have a lot to talk about. So I'm gonna throw the ball over to Jordan. Jordan, what was the one thing, choose one, favorite aspect of the gameplay demonstration?
Well, let me puppet everybody and just say the sandbox, and then that's it. No, I'm just kidding. The in an effort to just be vain and unique, let's say what the sandbox, or I guess some of Link's powers mean for the lore.
Ooh.
Of the game. So I think you actually also pointed it out on Twitter, but we finally got confirmation on, like, you know, in the first place, all the different squiggly lines everywhere that we could never translate being an actual genuine new like language, you know, some of which are like the symbols for like you know, the powers, like for instance recall.
Right.
There's that's just a completely new symbol. But the thing is, we finally got confirmation that of what that is, and you also noticed that is the very power that Link was using in that. You remember when Aonuma did that little mini trailer spot thing when he was like, sorry guys, we're delaying the game.
Yeah.
But here's 2 seconds of footage to make you happy. Well, Link is using recall, you know.
Yep.
On the Master Sword there. So, to me, I'm just like, oh boy, that is really interesting, and I'm very glad and also a bit traumatized as far as all the possibilities that brings up, and, you know, having to think about all of them. But I don't know, it's just very exciting, you know, as what it means for like fleshing out the lore of the world and exactly what's going on with the really mysterious trailers.
Right. And, you know, I do appreciate them like being really hush on the story. And like, you know, I'm not one, like, trust me, I'm a lore fiend when it comes to Zelda. Right. But once the game is actually in my hand, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look for everything. But when it comes to the trailers, you know, they don't have to go that much in when it comes to the story of Tears of the Kingdom.
Course.
And I feel like we got a lot, considering that retroactively we can all connect it to the Zonai now that the Zonai is confirmed. Right. So I'm pretty much good on story going forward when it comes to like the media blitz of Tears of the Kingdom. I just want to see more gameplay. You know, like
well, clearly the right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, clearly the right answer is the sandbox mechanics.
No, yeah.
I mean, obviously, that's by far the coolest thing about the gameplay reveal.
Yeah, so it's funny because I saw on Twitter, and I don't know exactly who tweeted it out, and they made a really, really good point where finally, now that we got the gameplay demonstration, I think it was Nintendo Fangirl or Forrest Minish. One of them stated that now that we have the gameplay demonstration, this is what Nintendo's been waiting for in order to show off the next trailer. You know what I mean? Because I feel like we're not done with trailers. Like, anyone thinking that the last trailer was the final trailer, definitely not. But all the trailers
Why
up
not
until
make it 6?
Yeah, exactly. You know, one for each year.
One for each year. There we go.
So, the trailers before, it showed gameplay, but like not to the extent that we saw during the demonstration, because we only had so much to go off when it came to Ultra Hand, and Fusion in itself was just like a big shocker, right? Even though we got hints of it ever since the second trailer, but now that it's completely been like revealed and fleshed out, I feel Nintendo can really like go in with the rest of the trailers that shows like how wild Breath of the Wild it can get when it comes to like Fuse, Ascend, Ultra Hand, and Recall, which I believe, and I tweeted this out today, I believe that the new apparatus that's on Link's hip, like the more you gain for that when it's like collectible or chargeable or whatever, that's what dictates how far you can go with each of these abilities. Like, let's say you only have one of them charged up, like one of the vials charged up. You can only fuse one thing to one thing. You have two vials charged up, fuse one thing to one thing to one thing. So top, like the, what do you call it?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, the final amount of fusible items is like 3, 4, 5 as you go on and, you know, get all of these upgrades or whatnot.
Yeah, it increases your capacity and stuff.
Yeah. But man, the sandbox lore, that's
Well,
some
I mean, you know, the sand, everything to do with the sandbox in general. I mean, that was Breath of the Wild's whole calling card.
Right.
Not only can you do whatever you want, but it's like the most environmental storytelling game ever. And you know, this might just beat it. So, you know,
oh, it's
there's a lot to
gonna
be excited for.
I feel like it really is gonna beat it. Now let me throw the ball over to Monster Maze. What was your favorite aspect of the gameplay demonstration that we saw?
Sorry, my voice has still not recovered from PAX. But I think I'm gonna be unique in this one, where I really like the Ascend.
Ooh.
I don't know why. Maybe it seems dull to other people. It's like, yeah, you just move through a ceiling, that's it. But from someone who's like really interested in level design and stuff,
yeah,
I think it has so much potential. And similar to other powers like Fuse and stuff, it could be possible to upgrade it in the future as well, where maybe you not just go up, but you can also go down with it, and it just changes the name to something else, Transcend. I don't know. But yeah, I just, from a game design perspective, just the way that it's a very, very ballsy thing to put in your game, because it can easily break a lot of things, and you can get around a lot of things. Whereas like with Fuse, I really think it's cool, and it's definitely been implemented in a brilliant way, but it's not necessarily something I'm too shocked about to see, because, you know, I've played games like The Forest where you can grab a stick, grab a boulder, and you make a little hammer out of it, you know?
Right.
Not as fast and not as efficient as we see in this game. Brilliant way. You know, the way they did it is really cool, that you can just do it in real time. You don't do it in a menu or something like that. The vehicle crafting, I think it's cool. It has potential to, also in terms of level design, because the sky is the limit. So, you know, how far can we go with these things?
I get it.
Because I also noticed that on the map there's like one icon, and it's like a battery icon, and it makes me wonder what that means. Like, is it like a charging station for the abilities, like you said, with the vials he has on his hip?
Right.
We still don't know what they do, and I'm very excited to see that. But yeah, as for just in general, it was just really fun to see Ascend in action finally, especially since I animated a whole video where I showed
I remember it, yeah.
Yeah, and just to see it in action, and it actually being pretty close to what I imagined it to be, was really awesome to see.
It was so cool when he went through, like, when he had to ascend through like a good amount of space, and then he just went into that green dark area, and I'm like, oh, that's neat. I like that, man.
That's thumbnail material right
there. Oh yeah. If only that video had better bitrate. But you know, it's funny how you brought up the battery up, because I had an idea that a lot of people were saying that the battery might be a charging station for you to charge up the vials. I'm honestly thinking that the islands are going to be divided up into zones, right? And if you go to this battery station and activate it, then every Zonai machinery piece that's going to be within that island space will have longer battery life. Because we saw that these, like, the fans had their own battery life, right? And if you go to these stations and activate it, it's like, okay, like, kind of like, you know, in the Sheikah Tower, it's like, oh, you gain the map for this area, right? You go to that battery station. Oh, this area, all the Zonai machineries will have 1.5 times longer battery life. That's what I think is going to be. So, like,
that would be cool, yeah.
Like, what do you call it? It rewards exploration. It's like, hey, you're having trouble exploring with the machinery, you should go here first, and then do that, and then do this.
Yeah, like you get more out of it, more efficiency or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see something like that. Because the the main island where he spends most of his time, that's the only place where he has the map for.
Yeah.
All the other, like this, he visits that smaller island before that, no map. The surface, no map. The only place he has a map for is that area. So he definitely triggered something before, like off screen before they started recording. Someone completed that. I think it's the tutorial area. I'm pretty sure that's going to be like the new Great Plateau. That whole area with the big gray tower.
Yep. We'll have to wait and see, man. Like, I was really hoping that Aonuma was going to play the beginning of the game, but that was still like amazing. I'm just thinking about like how many areas and how many ways I'm going to be able to access all of these islands with recall or whatever. It's just so exciting.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we're going to get into that later too, but I think there's going to be more of these little presentations. If I had to guess, they're going to do more of these shorter little segments where he just shows, because at the end he does say there's so much more I want to show you guys, but let's just leave it at this for now.
Right.
So yeah, I am expecting that they might, because he didn't really show all the stuff that you can do while skydiving, and we already know that there's going to be quite a lot of things you can do while soaring through the air too. You can use your bow, you can allegedly use weapons too, at least according to the patents and stuff. You can fall upside down, sideways. You can do a lot of crazy stuff in the air, but he didn't really show that. So, and that wouldn't ruin anything story-wise.
Right, man.
So I could see another one of these coming maybe next week.
Hopefully soon. Like, I'm just like, it's activated something within me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I need my fixes before May and before I go to Japan. We'll talk about that later. But thank you so much for that insight. And of course, last but not least on the subject, and don't worry, I'm gonna let you go first on the next subject. Nintendo Black Crisis. Let me know, what was your favorite aspect of that? I mean, I have an idea. I already have an idea, but I mean, like, if it's something else, go for it.
It might shock you because I am most interested in the gameplay of that demonstration. So I guess, like, to put a bit of a twist on it, the thing about it is, like, he shows all this potential, and it's like, wow, look at all the stuff you can fuse with, and look at going through the ceiling and building vehicles. But what I think is really exciting is that nothing is saying that these abilities are specifically for these uses.
Right.
Like, for example, he shows off the recall ability as a transportation method where you can use it to ascend the falling debris. But nothing's saying that that's the only use of recall. It's going to be used in the puzzles. It's probably going to have a bit of a play in the combat, possibly bosses, given how we have that 2021 video where he's also using recall. This time he's not ascending the island. He's just reversing a spiked metal ball. What's really cool, and some other people also noticed this, is that one of those shrines to that altar where he uses ascend, you can see some of those constructs and ruins very similar to the ancient robots. It would be so cool if we could use the recall ability on them. And it could be kind of like the time shift stone mechanic, because I still would actually love to see that in here. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, oh wait, we still technically have a time reversal mechanic already with recall.
Right.
And something like Ascend, it definitely excites me the least because it just shows, on paper, it just seems very basic, like, oh, you go through a ceiling and stuff. But I'm sure they're going to find ways to, make other use of it and make it so cool. Like, I don't know, let's say we're fighting that giant golem enemy or a giant. Imagine if we went under the boss and used Ascend to get to the top. That would be pretty cool. There definitely are going to be things that they pull off. It's like, oh, I didn't even think that was possible. And even for Ultra Hand, he talks about how, you can fuse things and make vehicles. However, when he's using Ultra Hand, we know that in the background, it looks like those giant, rectangular blocks that have, like, the Zonai dragons on the ends.
Yeah.
They're highlighted, so it looks like we can also manipulate those. And they do seem a bit big to make a vehicle, so it's possible that that'll just be involved in puzzles. And when you think about it, Ultra Hand is pretty much just a magnesis ability. It's just they added where you can fuse it to objects and stuff.
Right.
So we're going to be using Ultra Hand not only to make vehicles, but also to solve puzzles and stuff. And even the fact that, like, the propellers, obviously, they generate wind. We can attach them to vehicles. but you see him also use that wind to like ascend with the paraglider. And Link can also, the prompt comes up where you can pick up that propeller. So you could have a puzzle where you have to activate the propeller, pick it up, and then move along to like carry something.
Yeah.
So these individual pieces, they have tons of puzzle potential. So I think that's the thing that excites me the most, because we shouldn't assume that these things, their only purpose is what was demonstrated.
Yeah, like it's funny how you brought up the broken down machinery. Man, I'm brain firing right now. A construct. Yeah, it was like a broken down construct, and then I like how you compared them to the ancient robots from Skyward Sword, and then that goes in line to what I was thinking before when it comes to the hip device, like expanding or upgrading these abilities. So imagine like you're trying to use recall on it, right? But this thing is like, it has this many years of wear and tear. Let's say this specific construct is 500 years old, all right? Use recall. But as you're using recall on it, kind of like how when you have to pull out the Master Sword, you need 13 hearts. When you use recall on it, you're slowly but surely recalling it back to a state that it can work. But depending on how old it is, you're gonna need recall to be upgraded this much. Right? So that's how this robot is this old. I can't recall it right now because I don't have enough power. Oh, but this robot over here, this construct over here can be recalled because I have this much power. And then, you know, what you said about like ascending through objects or ascending through bosses or even puzzles, depending on the amount of energy that you have on your hip, you can ascend through 1 meter of space. You can ascend through 2 meters of space. You can ascend through 3 meters of space, depending on the amount of energy. And I feel that's like, you know, a good way to relay the need for looking around in this world, because of course, like with Breath of the Wild, you can just go straight for the bosses. You don't really have to go for Sheikah Shrines. You don't have to go for this. You don't have to go for that. But if you want your health to be bigger, then you're going to have to find these Sheikah Shrines, get the Goddess Orbs, get yourself a heart container. And I feel that, you know, idea is going to be relayed over to Tears of the Kingdom, whereas, you know, if you want to ascend through this much material, you're going to have to explore. I mean, you don't have to, but I mean, if you want to, you can do that. And I feel that one way that could be attributed to Ultra Hand, because in the latest trailer that we saw that Ultra Hand was moving around a puzzle similar to how we did it with the gyro in Sheikah Shrines in Breath of the Wild, right? But that thing seemed really, really, really big, right? So I feel that energy potential in upgrading your energy for Ultra Hand, when relating it to Ultra Hand, is that, the more energy you have, the bigger things you can move with Ultra Hand, the bigger things you can fuse together with Ultra Hand. Because right now we could fuse logs and these little propellers. But if we upgrade it, then we can move, we could just move bigger things, like these bigger boulders, these bigger sheets of metal.
Castle away.
Yeah, basically that.
Quick, get it away.
No. That's how we're gonna we upgraded it entirely. That's how we bring it back down to the ground. It's like, all right, I have this much power, I can bring Hyrule Castle back down. All right, Ganon, let's get it, right? So that's probably in that line. Well, that's what I've been thinking, but
yeah. But I think what's more exciting is that nothing's telling us that these are the only 4 abilities. There's already so much potential with these. So imagine it's like, oh yeah, guess what? There's 4 more you unlock along the way. These are just the ones you kind of start with.
Right.
So just to think that there's even more, I think that is just the thing that's really, really, really exciting. And they need this if we're going to be, revisiting Hyrule.
Right, because I saw that a lot of people are pointing out that the pins that come in the collector's edition, and the fact that those symbols are on the back of the Joy-Cons in the Tears of the Kingdom Switch OLED, that a lot of people are thinking those symbols might be more arm runes, lack of a better term.
Yeah, because we only see the one.
Right. Man,
hopefully they are related to that.
I can't wait for this game. But we already gone through favorite aspects of the gameplay trailer. Now let's gear towards a little bit when it comes to one thing specifically from that gameplay trailer, and we're gonna have a couple of words on each before we go on the next subject. And I'm gonna start off with NBC on this one. So boys, how are we feeling on Zonai finally confirmed? All right, let's talk about that for a little bit before we move on. All right, NBC, you got the floor.
So obviously in the past couple trailers, it seemed rather obvious that they were going to like have, you know, an influence because their architecture, it's not the exact same, but it's everywhere and it's very similar. It just has a bit of a more like polished or modern look, I guess. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of, it just was, it felt bizarre to finally see just a material drop to say Zonai charge. It was, because like, yeah, technically this isn't the first time we've had it mentioned, but it's still like the second time, and the first time was just the name of a location, and this is in Tears of the Kingdom as well. So that, I don't know, it's pretty crazy. I'm really looking forward to the story, and I'm very interested in those robots.
Oh, me too. I want to see like how the Zonai got from A to B, because I finally feel we're gonna get the confirmation in the reveal of like what made him disappear, and that I want the record to be set straight, because like the one captivating thing for the Zonai for me, like in its entirety, is that there's two differentiating accounts of this tribe. One, they were savages. Two, they were magic users, like, you know, sophisticated magic users. I'm like, okay, which is it? You know, because, you know, I don't know how savage you can really be with magic. You know, because
exactly, and like, the robots.
Yeah, exactly. And they built these, like, I want to assume they built these things. Like, yo, that's kind of sophisticated. You know, I feel like it's, you know, better technology than the Guardians. So I want those answers.
It does. Well, it does feel like, in a way, a bit of a maybe like a splitting of the tribe, because
maybe
if the bottom one, like the mazes and things and their statues, they're quite a bit different. And they're just a lot older. Like, it's the same thing, but there are differences between the two. So, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I feel like anything I say here would just be repeating what we've been talking about constantly. So, like, yeah, I am excited. And it feels unreal that, you know, we saw that in the demonstration.
Man, I'm just so happy, you know, like that amount of vindication, because I've seen those comments where it's like, man, look at all these ZeldaTubers, you know, putting like investing this much into the Zonai where they might not show up. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like there's a lot of stuff. I mean, the architecture, the swirls, we've seen that from the first Breath of the Wild, like back when it was Breath of the Wild 2. Man, it's just, everyone's like, oh man, y'all are reaching, and I'm like, yo, Look at everyone now. All right, so I'm gonna throw the ball over to Zeltic on that front. So how are we feeling on the Zonai finally being confirmed?
Yeah, like at the risk of echoing what NBC and I'm sure everyone else will say, I loved it. Just seeing the word Zonai, like obviously, like you said, we kind of knew, like, as in we almost for sure knew that the Zonai were going to be a big part of this game, but just seeing that word show up was just kind of vindicating, you know? It's like, we're not crazy. Like, they are going to be a big part of the game. But, like, I just think it's so interesting that the Zonai were such a small part of Breath of the Wild. It would be easy. It would be easy to look at the Zonai as they were in Breath of the Wild and pass them off as something that was kind of added later on in development. Because in creating a champion, they basically say straight up, Zonai is an anagram of the Japanese word for mystery. They were added just to give the sense that the world is older than what we can experience, and through having the ruins of an ancient civilization just makes the world feel more lived in and more real. Like, you know, where we are, like anywhere you live in the world, there's kind of ruins of people who've come before us. And it just kind of makes Hyrule feel a bit more real. But it's not actually true that the Zonai were like an afterthought. The Zonai were something that
like deliberately,
yeah, and it was in their minds from the very beginning. Like if you go all the way back to the E3,
the first trailer, had them, yeah,
it had Zonai owls, it had Zonai serpent statue things, like fully in view, like as a big part of the world's identity was the ruins of this big ancient civilization. And obviously it wasn't really mentioned at all back then. And then when Breath of the Wild came out, it was only really in the Faron region that there's anything substantial Zonai. Obviously, there's like the labyrinths across the world and Typhlo ruins and things like that. But
Thundra Plateau.
Really have to Thundra Plateau. You really have to work to kind of like suss out what the Zonai are about. And part of that is why I'm interested in how they're going to handle the Zonai story now, because it's kind of like how the whole story was handled in Breath of the Wild, was that the player had to work to kind of find out what happened to Hyrule. We're only told so much through memories. So things like Akala Citadel, or Akala, I'm never sure how to say that word. I'm going to go with Akala Citadel, why not? So that is where Hyrule fell, really. So that's like a super important location in the history of Hyrule and working out what happened 100 years ago. But there's not a cutscene, there's not a memory that explains that. It's just NPCs and what the world itself, like how the Citadel itself is designed and where the Guardians are. And the Zonai are similar in that they're an ancient civilization. There's never anything in the game about them except there's a few NPCs walking around the Faron Woods talking about ancient ruins and things like that, but no one mentions it really in the game. You have to kind of experience them for yourself and walk through Faron region and kind of marvel at these ancient ruins, and that was the Zonai's role. But now in Tears of the Kingdom, that's not going to be the case, because the Zonai are much more at the forefront. They're going to be more involved in the game's main story, and it's the same with how Breath of the Wild storytelling works as a whole. Like, now we're reusing this world with all the ruins of the Great Calamity still in it. So that's not going to be the main point in the environmental storytelling. It's not going to be working out the Great Calamity, because we know that story. So I'm really interested in how they handle the story of the Zonai, how they kind of relay that to us, because the Sky Islands look abandoned. They do look like the ruins of an ancient civilization that are no longer there, like most of Breath of the Wild. So I wonder if a lot of the Zonai's story will be told again through environmental means, like through their ruins and through like exploring ancient Zonai temples or things like that, or if they'll take a much more involved role in the story, and if we'll actually meet Zonai characters in cutscenes and, you know, interact with them in the game. So I'm really interested in seeing how they work. It's such an interesting part of Zelda lore, and I'm so happy that it's like, it's real. Like, we're not crazy. The Zonai are real.
Man, there's so much for me to talk about when it comes to the Zonai, but I want to bring up two things that you just activated in my mind, and I apologize if anyone else had this in their head. I'm gonna take this for you. I'm sorry, right? The fact that, like, you know, like you said, it was not really an afterthought. Sure, it was like implemented in order to give the world a sense of, you know, things happened even from the before times, the before times and whatnot. But even in creating Champion, they like confirmed that the Zonai, who seem to have a religion or like a cult worshipping aspects of animals, and some of these animals, if not like basically all three animals, are related to virtues of the Triforce. We have a boar representing power, we have the owl representing wisdom, and we have the dragon representing courage. And the fact that the Zonai themselves are attributed to the virtues of the Triforce and aspects, a very important aspect to Zelda that was oddly missing from Breath of the Wild. I am super excited to see, you know, the Triforce come back in some way, shape, or form.
I think you pointed it out. It's front and center on the Switch OLED. You get the two dragons. Front and center is the old school Triforce logo with the royal crest wings. It's going to be a big part of this game. It's going to be.
I'm ready. Yo, Austin is in the chat. What's good, Austin? Can anyone on the panel explain? Can anyone explain what a Zonai is? You know, I literally put out a video yesterday. Like, it's a small video, 4 minutes, and I'm like, listen, this is the TLDR. If you guys want more comprehensive knowledge on the Zonai, everyone else here on this panel has made videos that are way more intuitive.
Channel, what's it, Nintendo Black something?
Yeah, like it's on the
something like that. Yeah, man, he might have talked about the Zonai before,
like Nintendo Black Trouble, Nintendo Black, you know, Problem, or something like that. Like,
you called. It's funny. It's funny because I was going to quickly interject here. It's funny because I was thinking about it recently, but like, maybe Ganondorf is like pulling down these Sky Islands because the Triforce is in the Sky Islands somewhere, and that's where they took it, and that's why it was just wiped. Like, no one knows where it is. So maybe they hit it up there, and that's, you know, he's because we see the streams of malice, the pillars.
I was gonna mention them because we still don't know what
we
they
saw
are.
that at the trailer when it was like when he was flying on the helicopter. Like, ugh.
So another thing, I saw this, like, I thought of this yesterday, but when Link is skydiving to the surface, some people think that there are like big holes surrounded by a border of like
I've seen those. I've seen those.
Okay. Think about this. All right, because I
here it comes.
I'm like, oh my gosh. All right, what if those pillars of malice going up are coming from those holes underground?
That makes so much sense.
And it explains why there's remnants of malice around the holes.
Right?
Yeah,
and
I could see it.
And that and that explains, like, if we're correct about the underground. Remember that area in the fourth trailer where you see bokoblins surrounded by mouse and they're mining away at something? Like, that's where the mouse come from, like under Hyrule, to the point it's like, I'm gonna bring your ass down, these Sky Islands, specifically at points that could like hint at where the Triforce could be. Nah.
Yeah, I think most of the malice we find will be in underground sections, in like an underground layer. I think that's where most of it's gonna be.
Right. And
anyways, sorry about that.
No. That's what the fifth dimension is about. Like, this is what I live for. Keep doing that, you guys. But another point that I hope I'm not taking away from anyone, like, sorry, is that the fact this is the part that gets me stupid excited. Like, when talking about the Zonai and the Zonai confirmed their relationship with Ganondorf. This is gonna be insane. Like, how did Ganondorf get locked up by Zonai energy, like by Zonai powers? Like what happened in the history before the time of the Great Calamity that had Ganondorf locked away how many goddamn years ago by Zonai? Like, what's the relation between the Zonai and the royal family that they stepped in to lock away the greatest evil, the greatest plague known to the royal family's history, right? So I'm like, go ahead.
Because it seems like wherever the Zonai are keeping him, if that is what's happened, we're still not 100% sure, but it definitely seems like the Zonai have sealed him in some way. That seems to be like the reasonable interpretation. But it's definitely kind of part of a plan or something that happened over a long period of time, or at least
very long period of time.
Happened a long time ago, because it's all deliberately designed to enshrine Ganon. Like, things might have changed, to be fair, since 2019, since the first time we saw Tears of the Kingdom. But the shot that got everyone going crazy, the shot where we see that weird Zonai dungeon entrance thing, you know the one I'm talking about.
Yep.
That's got a head above the door that's got to be an interpretation of Ganon. It's this kind of big, evil, horned skull thing, which is very reminiscent of the barbarian helmet, which is another Zonai item, which I made a whole theory a while ago, basically pinning the Zonai as evil, because if you look at stuff in Breath of the Wild, there's a lot of evidence that they were evil. Like, they're described as kind of savage barbarians, and they have the barbarian set, which is a horned skull with red hair, which is Ganon, right?
Yeah.
But now we're seeing Tears of the Kingdom, and I think Will mentioned it, that now we're seeing this kind of more, at least they look, more benevolent and sacred part of the Zonai. So I think it was Will that said we might kind of see a split in the Zonai tribe, like echoing the Sheikah Yiga split, which any Zonai lore is just going to be so fascinating. We're in such an interesting position now, because we know we've got a whole game's worth of content on them. Not that there was much in that game, but now we're finally getting more info on something from a previous Zelda game, which kind of never happens. Like, you get other weird, elusive races, like you get the Twilight, and then Twilight Princess comes out, and then that's it.
Yeah, they're gone.
We're left. Yeah, exactly. We're left with whatever we had to theorize on them. But now we're getting more Zonai, which is great.
Man, like because my idea on the Zonai, when it comes to like the barbarian armor set and the savages, like, oh, they're warlike savages, I feel like history was deliberately unkind to them in order for people to like not research them within that of like Zelda lore, not to us in real life, but in that is like they're painted in this negative light so that people like, oh man, why should we like look into this? This is like, they were obviously savages. There's nothing more to that, And the barbarian set obviously is something that a lot of people attribute to the Zonai, especially since you find each part within one of those labyrinths and whatnot. And that definitely suggests like a tribe split. But at the same time, I feel that I think the barbarian armor attributes to more in line with someone trying to utilize their power, but for their own purposes. And it created that barbarian set that had to be locked away, because the Zonai is like, oh, if people can like replicate our power, if people found out they can do that, that's gonna lead to problems. So that's why they locked away the barbarian set in the labyrinth and like in league with the Sheikah. That's what I'm thinking for that specific. Also, over in the YouTube chat, hey, Conrad's here. What's good? He says hello from Nintendo New York coffee spot. Yeah,
Oh, hey.
The Starbucks inside Nintendo New York. What's good?
Hey, Conrad. Sorry you couldn't be here.
Yeah, we miss you. Oh my lord. But that's like my take on the Zonai. But let me throw the ball over to Monster Maze now. On how do you feel that the Zonai are like finally here, confirmed? They're gonna be a thing in Tears of the Kingdom.
Well, I've been joking from the very beginning. Like, all we need is just one mention, and we can finally put this thing to rest.
You were saying that at the Airbnb at PAX. I'm like, man.
Well, even me and Will even joked about it like long time ago. Where like, I want to have a moment where Zelda says the word and she just quickly glances at the camera. just a quick little glance, like. But yeah, like. I can understand why people were kind of sick of hearing about the Zonai back in 2019 and onward, like up until 2021, I guess, because there were a lot of theories and some of them were pretty crackpot, I guess. It's mostly just the quantity of theories that started coming out because, you know, we saw those ruins underground and the first thing we thought to ourselves was finally we're going to get to know who these people are, because it's the biggest mystery in the whole, at least for me, it's the biggest mystery of Breath of the Wild so far. The most unexplained one, and the one that I want to learn the most about, because you can't just introduce a tribe and not ever like explain who they were, where they come from, because we all know the timeline. There were no Zonai back in the old days. We had
interlopers.
Yeah, the interlopers. We had the tribe from Majora's Mask and all that kind of stuff. But never before did we have like Zonai people who sealed Ganon long before anything from Breath of the Wild happened. So yeah, I can see that people were kind of, you know, getting a bit tired of it, or maybe didn't believe. Because it was just ruins that we saw. So you could say, well, maybe it's just another set of ruins and Ganondorf happens to be there. But we're not going to learn anything new about the Zonai. It's just there to show like, oh, this is a really old place. But now we finally got it, man. It finally showed up. We know now that because fun detail for those who don't follow me on Twitter, in the Dutch version, they're called zonoids, basically. Yep. It's zonoïde, but you know, in Dutch the word for android is androïde. So we know it's supposed to be zonoïde, or zonoid. So that's a pretty funny detail where it's like all the other languages don't necessarily say like these were built by the Zonai, even though they do have a Zonai charge inside them. So it does make sense, but the Dutch version is a bit more on the nose. But yeah, as Zeltic said, there's a lot of contradictory information about the Zonai, and I just want to know, were these people on the good side of history or on the bad side of history?
We need the truth. We need the core.
Yeah, because for sure Ganondorf is sealed inside one of their ruins deep underground. That's pretty much a given by this point. If at least they still kept that in, like that big Zonai dungeon entrance that Zeltic mentioned.
Yeah.
If that's still a thing, because they have changed some things, but if it's still a thing, then yeah, it's all but confirmed that that they are the ones at least involved in sealing him away. So that would mean that they are the good guys. But as Celtic said, there's also the barbarian outfit, which looks very evil in a lot of ways, and they were savage and they were warlike according to the descriptions. So either someone back in history kind of put them in a bad light, like maybe they were defeated or they disappeared, and you know how they say like the history is written by the victor. Someone kind of made sure that people didn't know about them, and if they do, that they thought they were bad people, or that they were, you know, savages who were not worth like they didn't have a big impact on history, or whatever the case may be. But I'm just happy that we finally know that these Sky Islands, because after 2021, the teaser from 2021, I was actually starting to doubt if the Zonai were going to be a thing, because the architecture didn't really match the ones that we saw on the surface. It had a pretty different style, like the pillars and stuff. They were more like they start thin at the bottom and they become wider at the top, which is not the case with the Zonai ruins that we see on the surface. Of course, we didn't see any of the dragon stuff yet. So I was starting to wonder, like, are these islands actually connected to the Zonai? And I was starting to entertain the idea that maybe it's just a completely different group of people and it's not going to have anything to do with the Zonai. But now, of course, after the last few teasers with the giant dragon logo and now finally having the word Zonai as an item, yeah, it's confirmed that these islands had something to do with them. I just want to know, why did they build robots and who were they? And I mean, so many questions, of course, about them.
Oh man, yo, Tears of the Kingdom is about to be that game. I cannot wait. Oh man, but let me go ahead and throw the ball over to Wiley on that front. So, how are you feeling on, like, the Zonai being here and being actually confirmed? But before you say anything, there's one thing I want to point out, that it's funny that both the Breath of the Wild and the Tears of the Kingdom, both of the reveal trailers had Zonai in them, and I'm like, yo, this is gonna be important. But go ahead, Wiley, the floor is yours.
It's a bit funny that you guys, like, earlier pointed that out as well, like the connections that a lot of people were borderline obsessed with the Zonai, with Tears of the Kingdom. So I understand that at some point people were like, for the love of Christ, please quit, make other content. There are other videos you can make, stuff like that.
Yeah. So
I get that. But in the end, but that's just like hindsight is 2020, Like, if you look back, it's like, they've always been there. It's a bit like that one scene from the first Puss in Boots movie. With Humpty Dumpty. If you don't know about it, Google it. It's funny. But the Zonai. Well, when I was watching the demo, my editor made a comment, and I was like, oh, that's pretty... I'm not going to say what he said, because it will reveal too much.
Yeah.
And I'm writing a video on it right now, and as far as I'm viewing the Zonai at this point in time, I'm kind of 100% viewing them as being put in bad light. As in, they weren't necessarily evil. They weren't necessarily... Well, they weren't evil, but mostly good at the end of the day.
Right.
Because you also have that footage of those knights who were being washed over by Malus and Bokoblins. And it clearly looks like they're defending the place. And they locked away Ganondorf. Stuff like that. So that makes me believe that they are actually, in a lot of ways, the good guys. And there are a lot of misinterpretations. I mean, they lived so long ago that history as a whole has just kind of washed away. And it's also clear that, and I think this is also a big reason why there's a huge misunderstanding about what they are and who they are, because I think they're actually part of an already existing group. They're just kind of a shoot from it. But it's clear that people in Hyrule don't understand them in any way, shape, or form, because they cannot even read their language. There's no example of Zonai language in the entirety of Breath of the Wild where it's kind of translated or used by Hylians, or in a way that it's clear that the Hylians understand what it means. So without knowing what their writings say, you will have a very rudimentary idea of what the actual civilization, norms, values, and culture was like. So they might be right on some parts that they were warriors, 100%, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are A, evil, B, savages, or C, like
warlike
dum-dums or whatever. So
Hello?
that's kind of my view on it at the moment.
Oh, nice. Like,
sorry, I cut that off pretty randomly.
No, because it sounded like you were going to say something else, like, oh, he's leading into something. Oh, all right.
No,
cool.
that's just kind of it. I'm currently seeing it as in they are misunderstood. We clearly don't understand their culture and everything behind them because we don't understand their writings at all.
Exactly.
And I think they are part of actually another group that is already seen in many Zelda games and very important. But we just kind of lost sight of them. They are the lost ones in that kind of... I'm not trying to reveal too much because I don't.
I'm excited. Yeah, I know you're cooking some. Yeah,
but
I agree. If you don't mind me jumping in really quick, it does depend on what, like, how a civilization like the Zonai would be viewed. Completely depends on what it is that has been left behind, because there's some parallels to be drawn between the Zonai and the Sheikah, right? And I think most people would agree that the Sheikah, exactly, and I think most people would agree that the Sheikah are for the most part viewed as good, but if you look at something the Sheikah have done, you get like the Shadow Temple.
I was about to say the Shadow Temple, bro. Like
exactly. So like, I don't think that's why I'm so excited to see more about the Zonai, because I don't think they'll be portrayed as completely good or completely evil. So I think we will kind of see explanations for the more savage, warlike things shown in Breath of the Wild.
I agree with that. Like, Nintendo in general in the Zelda games has never been very black and white. It's also always a bit weird grayish, and they can go into very dark tones and like backstory and whatnot. I mean, Majora's Mask also has awful stuff with the All Knight's Mask, which is basically a torture device. Yeah. So I mean, they don't shun away from that kind of stuff. So I think there will be like some evil to the Zonai, 100%. And yeah, you kind of ruined it for me now, Ed, because it was the Sheikah. Darn it, I'm gonna throw this chair.
Oh my goodness. Yo, like just
how could you?
Man, just going into the Shadow Temple, and then you're hearing voices saying that, like, oh, the greed of the royal family has been covered in blood. But people are like, yeah, man, the royal family, Hyrule, they can do no wrong. I'm like, bro, they suck. Like, they've done so much like bad shit in the Zelda series, man. Sometimes I understand Ganondorf.
They are awful in many ways, and the Sheikah are, for the most part, good, but have also done horrible things. It's like that.
It's like, oh, you talking smack about the kingdom? Hey, we want to show this place called the Shadow Temple. You want to come inside? Like,
yeah, or just like other straight up war crimes.
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, to be honest, the interlopers were also nothing else than a shoot off.
Exactly.
That just went sicko mode.
No. Like, I will never forgive the royal family for what they. I've never forgive the royal family and the light spirits for what they did with the interlopers. Man, they got to the sacred realm fair and square. I'm sorry you can't use magic like them. Listen, they were just blessed with that.
It's not a freaking foot race,
man.
This isn't like the Boston
like, you don't.
Marathon.
No, it's crazy because like, oh, the Triforce does not discriminate. Okay, were the interlopers demons? No. Were they like beings of malice? No. They were just skilled in magic. Okay, they won the path to the sacred realm and it's established dominion fair and square. But the Hylians are like, no, we're the chosen ones. Stop them! And then they had to dispatch the lights. I am so mad about. Okay, no, I can't keep talking about. All right,
you view it a bit as the One Ring, as in actually it's like the Triforce should be a thing that you don't really use. Well, clearly, as we have seen from A Link Between Worlds, it's not like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings where it's destroy it, because then you destroy everything. So that's not the answer. But it's also not, oh yeah, let's mess around with it. So I think the proper use of the Triforce is just stay there and be pretty. Don't be used by anyone, because it will always end up in absolute corruption. Because
man, Dragon Ball. Nah, Dragon Ball, bro.
Dragon Ball. Hey, yo, can you give me a Sunday and can you bring back that one guy from like Midna, please?
Yeah.
That one guy.
Oh my goodness.
I've always had the impression that like the main reason they did deal with them was because the magic they had was like dark power, and in Twilight Princess,
it wasn't evil power. It was shadow power, man. It's not evil.
It's just represented by darkness, bro.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe they just had like it's like a not necessarily different culture, but they just like their perspective. They thought like, oh no, it's awful and stuff. But like even with Lanayru and the fused shadow, like it's able to transform beings like Darbus into like a monster. So obviously there is some sort of
okay. Let's talk about the magically inclined Gorons that could totally control magic. Yeah.
Well, guys, we're getting on a side tangent. We're talking about savages.
And then Jordan hasn't even talked yet, man. Like, Jordan, like, how do you feel about the Zonai finally being in Tears of the Kingdom?
Yup. I sure do, buddy.
No, 100%, man.
I mean, 100%, my guy. It's pretty freaking cool. I feel like the entirety of the Zelda theory dumb creator and not creator is just that Joker gif. That's just like, you wouldn't get it. You know what I mean? Like, for all the people who like don't know what a big deal it is that the Zonai were confirmed, like Ed was saying.
There was a lot of people on Twitter that are like, yo, so what's a Zonai and why should I care? I'm like, it's time. Like,
oh no, dude, I was using that gif all the time. you know the one, right?
Yeah.
He's got the cigarette and he's just like, you wouldn't get it. But yeah, no, it's like, it's been, that's the one. He just put it in the chat. Anyway, but
God.
It's everything that's been talked about for the last however long we've been on this subject. I mean, it's everything. Quite literally, it is everything. It just confirms that they've been involved, for a long time. With the lore and with the world building, and I don't know, it's just really exciting, really cool. I don't know if I was checking out everybody else's reactions and stuff, and I mean, it was really funny to see everybody the moment, like I could almost time it, like who reacted the quickest, to seeing that Zonai charge pickup, and then just immediately like cheering and stuff. I don't know.
Yo,
really cool.
my favorite was NBC. So it was like he was like bouncing off the walls, man.
I liked his tweet. He retweeted my thing, and he was just spamming on the keyboard. It was amazing.
I just started laughing because it was just hilarious. Especially with how casual it was.
Yeah, it was like moving on, and then they even pick up another one in the video. It's like, oh, did you miss that, by the way? There's another one of those Zonai charges. So anyway, moving on. Yeah, but I mean, it's hard to say anything, obviously, that hasn't already been said. It's everything.
I'm embarrassed to say I actually missed it during the stream the first time.
Yo, I don't blame
you.
I
didn't react too much to it. I saw it come by and I was like, oh yeah, that's Zonai. And then I was so kind of out of it because of all the gameplay mechanics, and I'm kind of a junkie for that. And then I just kind of glossed over it a bit.
Yeah, I just missed it entirely until like a few minutes later, someone in chat said it. So I rewinded. I was like, oh, there we go.
Have been just so second nature to talk about the Zonai so often. You just saw it. You're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
you just expected it. This is normal.
It was me. It was me on an alt account that reminded you.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I was like watching. I was like enraged. I was like, how dare he not react to it?
Yo, like Zonai fan 1, Zonai fan 2, Zonai fan 3. He's like 5 burner accounts for Zonai.
Yeah, he's that dedicated. That's how he promoted his video as well.
Why do you think I got so many subs, bro?
It's all Zonais. Just look at him.
You were saying, Don?
All Zonai. Oh no, I was just wondering which version of the stream did you guys watch? Because I watched the UK version because it went up first, and it had only had the subtitles. It didn't have the voiceover.
I did US.
I saw the US one, yeah, and it had like the voiceover and the thing in the background.
I watched your stream, buddy.
Oh
for
yeah,
about 5 minutes, and then whenever NOA dropped, I watched theirs.
Yeah.
No, I was scrambling.
Was it really 5 minutes later for the American one?
It was something like that.
It wasn't instant. It was like 1 or 2 minutes afterwards.
I don't think it was 5 minutes.
UK was like a whole minute after, and I was like refreshing, like what's going on?
No, I was going crazy.
It took really long for the American one to go live because I was live streaming and I went live 10 minutes beforehand and was like, all right, I guess I'll play Resident Evil 4 Remake a bit. Really good game.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's so good. So I thought, you know what, I'll just mess around in that for a bit in the shooting gallery. And I was like, all right, it's time. So I look on the channel, I was like, I got nothing. All right, am I going to do another round in the shooting gallery or what? And I was like, I did a couple more, and then it finally went live. So it took a good bit.
Yeah, I was halfway through a hate email to Doug Bowser. Fortunately, I had to backspace it.
Cease and desist on his life.
Oh my lord. Man. But moving on from the Zonai top, let's gear back towards gameplay a little bit. Here's one thing that I want to talk about when it comes to like the little nitty gritty things that we've noticed in the trailer. So like to prime you guys up, if you like, there's like basically like a free for all type subject. But one thing that got me really excited for Tears of the Kingdom from the gameplay trailer was the mini map. And the fact that we're getting latitude, longitude, and altitude. But the fact that we've seen markers for caves that also had check marks on them, which means not only will it have marks for caves, but caves like are completable. Like, oh, you 100% this cave. And I'm like, oh man, grottos are back. Oh, that like, it's time. So there's a double-edged sword to that subject where one, are the caves, is that, like, I've seen a lot of people say this on social media, are the caves both on the ground and in the air, are those what we interpreted as underground? I don't believe so, because we still have that big expansive area that we saw in the trailer, which was kind of massive, right? And I'm like, yo, if that's a cave that big, Yo, if you give me like, what, 20 of those, I'm good, right? But I think there's still a big, massive explorable underground, but I do believe there's going to be, now we have confirmation of localized caves that can be completed. If you clear all the enemies, you get all the chests in there and whatnot. And the fact that they have check marks are like, damn, that's something that Ocarina of Time really could have used. So how are we feeling on that? I'm going to throw it over to Dawn first for this.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's going to be caves on the surface as well, because we've seen 2 of them.
Yep.
We saw a cave entrance near the
Faron region.
Faron region, yeah.
Yeah.
And we see one on the overworld as well when he first uses the homing arrow.
Yep.
In one of the newer trailers. So we know that they will be there too. I'm just very curious what their purpose is, because you have those new like spire thingies with the green energy coiling around it.
Yeah.
And
I think those are shrine equivalents.
Yeah, well, the icon, we've pretty much been able to confirm that the icons, those blue shrine-like icons, they're not exactly the same, but they're pretty damn similar.
Yeah.
Those are those spire thingies. Because you can see in the footage where he's standing right next to it, but it's out of frame. But then later he's on a raft, and he's looking at that same direction. You can see from the mini-map, from the shapes, that it's the exact same location. And like right in the top right corner, you can see it. So that is that thing. But I'm just curious if maybe they've split up the two, because in Breath of the Wild, shrines, obviously, they had 2 different functions. You used them as a fast travel point, and you had a little micro challenge or micro dungeon, if you will. And but these new spires, they don't really seem to have an entrance, and they're also quite a bit smaller than the shrines, it seems. So I'm not entirely sure, because he passes right by one when he's using recall. And you can see that from the details, it doesn't look like a structure that you would be able to enter.
Like enter, yeah.
It doesn't have like an elevator like the shrines.
Yeah, so unless it warps you to some sort of...
I wonder if, with all the green energy being so closely connected to spirit energy and like, you know, spirits of the dead, things like that, I wonder if we're assuming that these spiral things are going to be kind of shrine replacements or something similar, I wonder if we'll see something similar to the Silent Realm from Skyward Sword, some kind of like spiritual plane, or you know,
that's what I was thinking.
Something to do with Link's spirit, and like, because obviously physically he can't fit in that rock, and there's no elevators to take him to some anonymous space underground like the shrines.
I feel like we become one with that energy.
Different.
Yeah, like we become one with the energy, and it takes us to where, like, you know, either on a different plane of existence or anything like that to complete that shrine. That's why I think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's got to be either that, or they just split up that part, like the war point part of it, and it just only serves as that function. But then on the other hand, how do you get like an equivalent? Because there has to be some sort of equivalent of spirit orbs too, which you got from shrines as well. And the caves, if I had to guess myself, the caves look like they would be more suitable for like equipment and more rare items that you can get from those. We can see Link using the flamethrower shield inside one of those caves in the 2021 teaser. And there's 2 caves that are still unexplored in Aunuma's footage. Like there's 6 caves in total. 4 of them have a check mark. 2 of them don't. And you can also see... Yeah,
it's like
you can
in
also
Shrines in Breath of the Wild, you get the.
Do you have the footage like pulled up right now?
No, I'm talking about that in my upcoming video, which probably won't go up until Sunday because I've been jet lagged like crazy.
Oh, I feel that.
Yeah, but you can also see that Aonuma at one point he visits an area where there's snow, and it seems the islands have their own self-contained climate system that are detached from the climate system on the surface, where normally the higher you go, the colder it gets. But the
right, because I'm like,
islands...
how's Link not dying at that high altitude? Like, bro.
I think they just solved it with, like, you know, fantasy logic.
It's magic.
It's just magic. It doesn't matter if you're like 20,000 feet up. The island itself has its own little biome where you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But you still do wonder, like, what are the options that we have to fight the cold in that tutorial section? Obviously, I'm expecting that there's going to be multiple solutions, just like on the
we see chili peppers.
Yeah, we saw the peppers inside of the cave.
we see chili peppers, for example. But I also remembered that the sky outfit, the new sky outfit Link wears, has a secondary version of it where it's like more sturdy pants instead of like open sandals and like bare legs. He just has a pants and like really high boots with animal fur. Those would be perfect to hide inside one of those caves, for example.
No, I believe it, because like I want so much more what do you call it? Different types of clothing and armor and whatnot. And from what we've seen with Tears of the Kingdom Array, with like the new Zonai toga and the updated Champion's tunic, hopefully we'll get a lot more, I would say, rewarding pieces of clothing and weaponry that we've never seen before. And then the only way to get them is those caves above the ground, because they were never in Breath of the Wild, because they were always up in the sky or something like that. And you know, like the fact that caves, like, I've been a big advocate, because I've been a lot of people's been saying that, like, I want traditional dungeons to come back in Tears of the Kingdom, which, like, yes, 100%, but I don't want to give up shrines for it. And it seems that we're going to get some sort of shrine equivalent with these Zonai altars or whatever. And if all that is being compounded with these little caverns, I'm like, I'm a happy camper. Because like, we're having not only these shrine equivalents, possibly that have dungeons, and these caves, like that, like the more to explore, the more to like do all that stuff is just great. And the fact that we're getting like such an expansive sky on top of that, of the not so familiar land of Hyrule that's going through massive changes with each new trailer that we've seen. It's going to be a lot of exploration. But for me, the caves go a long way just by being there. You know,
well, I just hope they do something like the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring approach is where you had caves, you had like little dungeons in the form of the catacombs.
No, the catacombs, yeah.
Yeah, like they just made a specific subset of explorable areas, like mini dungeons. But then they also had bigger legacy dungeons. I think that's what they call them. So I'm hoping that Tears of the Kingdom will do something similar to that. So like there's going to be the big legacy dungeons, which would be a fitting name for Zelda 2, since we didn't have dungeons or at least proper dungeons in Breath of the Wild. So it would make sense if they do something like that, like maybe seven or eight legacy dungeons and then smaller caves. And then just because that has always been one of my biggest gripes about Breath of the Wild, is that, yeah, the shrines were cool, but they all look the same. They all have the same music.
Right.
So if you split that up into slightly different environments where you have a cave, that's already something. And then, like Celtic says, maybe some sort of silent realm, illusory realm type of deal where you warp to a little mini challenge. And then maybe we've also seen that weird upside down underground area, which we also don't know what that is, but I want to explore that too. So I hope there's just more variety in that regard.
Yo, see, Nintendo, listen, this is the type of stuff that we need to see before release. All right, I want to see what it's like to go inside one of these caves and explore just one. You just have to do one. One of these Zonai altars, just one of these things. One dungeon, that's all we need. All right, we don't need to see like 3 of them or anything like that. But in that sense, let me throw the ball over to Jordan. What do you think about the whole cavern system, the possibility of the underground, and stuff that we saw on the map when it comes to Tears of the Kingdom's gameplay?
I think it's probably one of the most invigoratingly exciting things about the upcoming gameplay, besides the sandbox. Like Don was talking about, I think that I don't really care if it was inspired by Elden Ring, but I think it is similar to how Elden Ring handled, all the different little mini dungeons and stuff. And I mean, that just worked so well. Everything just felt, it was like a bunch of little mini, I don't know, just mini dungeons, and you feel like you're really getting a lot done in a day, even though you're only exploring like 1% of the map. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it serves.
Oh, that's a good way of looking at it too, man. Whoa, that's. I'm sorry. No, like just doing like 1% of the map, or even smaller, like a cave that could take up a good amount of your time, and that's just one cave in Tears of the Kingdom. Just imagine how big the game is going to be. Like that's
that's the expectation,
Right.
It's
hopefully,
gonna have to be bigger than Breath of the Wild. Hopefully,
it's gonna be.
I mean, they have the copy paste Hyrule in there, but I'm sure they went and changed a bunch down on Hyrule proper as well. So that plus the Sky Islands, Skyrule, whatever we're agreeing on calling it. I don't know. It's extremely exciting. I want there to be some unique rewards, going through some of these dungeons and stuff like that. Like one of the things that Elden Ring will always have over Breath of the Wild, I mean, unless Tears of the Kingdom changes it, is the fact that there are just so many unique weapons.
Oh yeah.
And I know that's not necessarily Zelda's thing. Actually, Zelda's thing is kind of the opposite. It's you make your own unique weapons. It's like, why do you need, to have this one legendary sword drop among the other 200 legendary swords when you could just stick a rock on it or two, which is cool. I love that. But it would be nice to see, I don't know, so just things that break up kind of the repetitiousness that the shrines solidified as Breath of the Wild's gameplay.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's, I don't know, man. There are so many reasons to be excited for Tears of the Kingdom. Literally every topic is a reason, and this is one of the biggest ones. So
Oh yeah.
I'm excited. I want to see underwater stuff.
Yeah, go
Can
for
I
it.
just say also real quick is that I know that some people kind of have a gripe whenever we say when we refer to Elden Ring, because they're like, well, why don't you just go play Elden Ring then?
I did.
It's
Been
like
done
it's-
that.
Yeah, like just to be clear, it's a good thing that it takes inspiration from Elden Ring, because Elden Ring took inspiration from Breath of the Wild. Clearly took inspiration in terms of how they constructed the world and the open nature, the same open nature from it. It was clearly Breath of the Wild put the ball in other developers' court. Like,
Yep.
now it's your turn. And Elden Ring was, in my opinion, the first one to do it, to outdo Breath of the Wild in many. So it would only make sense for Tears of the Kingdom to return the favor and just go back to take some inspiration from them now.
A nice flexing contest between Nintendo and FromSoft. I'm here
Yeah,
for it.
exactly.
Man,
And
I
you know it's
love
still gonna
Elden
be very
Ring.
different.
Bro.
And it's still going to be very, very different either way, because Elden Ring is completely. It's not even in the same genre technically.
No,
It is.
no. I mean,
it
it's
is cool
like
to
a
see though that
platform.
those two Japanese giants are in this kind of battle, like a battle for honor more than anything else, like prestige, which
Right.
is really cool.
Man, but it's really nice to know that, because someone said that in the YouTube chat, prophetic Rainmaker, FromSoft directly did cite Legend of Zelda as inspiration for a lot of their Soulsborne games, right? Which is like, pretty obvious on the way they function, obviously, but FromSoft leans a little bit more into RPG aspects when it comes to like crafting your own character and whatnot. But Elden Ring was just truly something special, and I want to go on that little tangent for a little bit because ever since Breath of the Wild, there was a lot of games that tried to replicate that kind of style of the like open air adventure in which you can go anywhere you want, do anything you want in any order or whatnot. We've had games like, Phoenix Immortal Rising, we've had Genshin Impact, and Elden Ring comes along and takes that whole formula of like obviously like Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild are two different games, because Elden Ring doesn't have the open air adventure. There's Elden Ring does have a lot of verticality, but there's no way to really traverse that verticality in the same way you can with Breath of the Wild. There's no paraglider, none of that. But Elden Ring does something that Breath of the Wild did that sets it apart from the other Soulsborne game, and that is tackling anything in any direction. You can go anywhere you want, and that's something beautiful, especially in a Soulsborne game, because if you come
You
to
can go
contact
anywhere you don't want. Immediately, I got teleported to fucking Caelid. Within like the first 5 minutes of me
there is
playing
no-
the
Puts
game.
the chest hairs on you.
there's nothing past Caelid, but like let's say you get stuck on a boss. Yeah, let's say you get stuck on a boss in Elden Ring, right? In another Soulsborne game like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, if you got stuck in a boss, you're pretty much stuck until you figure out how to get past it, because like the game is pretty linear in that sense, right? But in Elden Ring, you get stuck in a boss, okay, you can just go in different directions,
Walk around.
try to get your
9 times out of 10.
try to get your runes back, and then just scurry off into another direction, and then get beefed up, and then it's like, all right, more God, it's time. Where you
Which
at?
is
Come here.
exactly the same as Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, Breath of the Wild didn't have any, because Elden Ring still funneled you into some linear areas.
Yeah.
For instance, you do have to get past Morgott if you, want to. I'm forgetting all the areas now, but you know what I mean. There were a couple linear areas just because Breath of the Wild really did not have any except for the Great Plateau. And And even then, you know, there are ways.
Yeah.
You know, so really, honestly, like if you ever saw a Hinox or a Lionel or a, you know, whatever, you could always just find some way around it. Hell, you could even loot a Hinox without even waking it up.
Yep.
And like that's just it's just beautiful. You know, it's just chef's kiss. You know, you can do whatever the hell you want. But you know, so you know, Elden Ring wasn't quite as open set as Breath of the Wild in that regard, but it still was. For
It
like
went a long
99%.
way. It went a very long way.
Well, I mean, it still was for like 99% of all the other bosses. You know,
Yeah.
Most of them are non-linear.
So let's go off that tangent super quickly, like without like you know going into too much detail. I'm gonna ask each of y'all because I assume everyone here has played Elden Ring. Wiley, you played Elden Ring, right?
I've never played it.
I am very sorry, everybody. I haven't played Elden Ring yet. I really want to play it, but I've been very busy with other stuff. I was busy with God of War, and then Resident Evil came out.
You played God of War before Elden Ring? I can't believe you.
Hey,
man.
God of War 2018 is a very good game.
It is.
I haven't even played Ragnarok.
You know,
yet.
it's funny.
Yes.
I did not play that game up until a week before Ragnarok came out, and I beat it within a week, and I'm like, yo, this is a game. This is a game. Like, oh, my goodness.
But I'm taking my time with it. I don't play it too much. I don't have that much time playing games anyway, because I just do a lot in my life. Just mostly work, to be honest.
I feel that.
But, and I also, and with games like that, I really want to, like, get everything. So I've beaten all the Valkyries, and I'm now at the Queen, but the Queen is... Woo! She's a spicy
man.
That takes a bit, you know.
Yo, Wiley, you should, you know, stop playing Sunshine mods and, you know, play Elden Ring in that time, you know, because that, you know,
Sunshine is the best
that game is garbage.
No,
we're not doing this. No. All right. Anyways. All right. So, personally, in my build in Elden Ring, I was a spellblader in which I used fencing weapons in conjunction with magic. So my dexterity and intelligence build. That's what I did in Elden Ring. Monster Maze, what was your build in Elden Ring?
Your strength, baby.
Hey.
I went with Bloodhound Fang and just started
nice.
wailing
Okay.
on people. Yeah, Bloodhound Fang was just so awesome. I know it's not a very unique weapon. I've seen a lot of people use it, but it was either that or double katana. And I did start using Ashes of War a little bit later on, but before that, yeah, just wailing on them. I barely used any magic for my first.
You know, it's funny because when you said pure strength, I was thinking you were gonna go pure Unga and just have like 2 grafted swords and just like, you know, smack people up.
That was pretty much me. I was
okay. There it is.
Radan's sword. I can't remember what they're called. The gravity swords that you get from General Radan. They like as soon as I got them, I was like, right, I'm done. And that was me for the entire game, just with those.
Nice. What about you, NBC? What was your build in Elden Ring?
I played a bit of it, but skill issues. Well, actually, Don, you mentioned Bloodhound Fang. Was that a drop from the boss from the first area, one of the mini bosses?
It's you get it from one of those guys who's stuck in that like other dimension.
One of the.
I think
Everjail.
The Everjail. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think if that's from the first area, I believe I did fight that boss, beat it, get the item, and I'm like, oh, this item is pretty good. So I just like used it to carry me past. I got up to the first like castle area. I did the boss and then the second boss, unlocked the second area, but I haven't gone back to play it. I do want to play it eventually. It's just, you know, skill issue.
Do it. Like my weapons was Rogier's rapier, and I put that with frost. And then I also got the red rapier that whatchamacallit does what was that thing called? It's not bleed. It's what Melania does to you.
Oh, Scarlet
Rot. Yeah. So I had one sword that did frost, one sword that did Scarlet Rot. So I'm like, all right, poke. All right, froze, Scarlet Rot, and you're dead. So that's what I did. And then I also had the staff to make me do magic. What about you, Jordan? What was your build?
Well, I was kind of a spellcaster as well.
Nice.
Plus, you know, that's my build in all of the Soulsborns is kind of wear some decently heavy armor, you know, be able to throw a couple spells and stuff. But the moment that I hit New Game Plus, I went and got myself another Sword of Night and Flame.
Nice.
And
oh man, that's what I'm gonna do.
Swords of Night and Flames.
That's what I'm gonna do in my second run. I love that sword.
Dude, that sword is stupid. And I mean, they keep nerfing it, which I mean, like I understand,
Man,
but it's still just stupid.
That's the sword. That's the sword I used to beat Millennia. I used that, and then what was it was the staff. It's a big gray staff with like blue crystals coming out of it. It's like the strongest staff in the game. The one that's like, it does.
Oh, the regal scepter.
Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. That
the meteorite.
No, not the meteorite one either. It's from one of the spellcasters that like you find both. Like there's a green spellcaster and a blue spellcaster, and they're both dead by the time you find it.
Find their clothes.
I just think Azur's staff, like the guy that you learn Azur's comet from. So Azur's staff, yeah, I use that one, and I actually have a gameplay video on that, and people get mad at me because the first phase of Millennia, I used the Sword of Night and Flame to cheese her, and then in the second phase, I made sure I scanned the dodging, I dodged her first like drop down. Then I drank that potion that gives you unlimited mana, and I just used Comet Azure, and I was able to knock her down twice in that, and then like I just killed her. Like yeah.
I had two of my. I mean, of course, I killed her myself the first time, but I just want to.
What you trying to say?
There,
Well, I killed her too. That was my.
No. I'm defending myself.
Okay, all right.
Put your dukes down. No, but no, because I have some friends that play. My brother and some other friends, and we would just hop into each other's games and help out. But it was hilarious because I had my one buddy, his name's Travis. He had the bastard sword or blasphemous blade. I forget what it's called, but it's the one that you get from Rykard.
Okay, yeah.
That one with
blade,
all. Yeah, the blasphemous blade.
The gods together.
That guy.
That guy. But its special move is like this Hulk smash on the ground, and it just like erupts 20 yards in front of you. Sorry, yards, American turn. Anyway, 20 meters in front of you, of like fire, And anyway, it can stun Millennia easy. So we had him with that. We had me with the Sword of Night and Flame, and my brother with Radan's blades, and we literally just timed it one at a time, just stun locking her in the middle of the room, and the fight was over in about half a minute.
Yo, that just reminded me of that JoJo's meme from part 5, where they're stomping on that one dude. That's what you guys did to Millennia.
That is exactly what we did. And I even took a sip and then rushed in with my Sword of Night and Flame. It was great.
Dude, I don't even think you need to defend yourself with Elden Ring, because I went straight up Mimic tier before it got nerfed.
You don't understand. There are so many people that try to sandbag me for like, it's like, you defeated Millennia that way? You didn't even play the game. I'm like, yes, I did. I made this build. Like,
the thing is, it's been there the entire time with the Souls franchise. If you don't kill a boss with just a stick and dodge, you are somehow inferior.
Hey man, I don't care. The bosses themselves cheat as well, so I'm not. I don't feel bad for killing them in a cheap way.
Especially with the waterfowl dance thing, it's just busted.
Oh yeah, man, I hate that shit, bro.
At least I did beat pre-patch Radon. That is my biggest achievement.
I fought him after patch, and then my brother was watching me play. Is like, damn, Radon's easy now. I'm like, yo, that was easy. I would hate to see him before patch. What the fuck?
Exactly.
His hitboxes were ridiculous pre-patch.
So like,
oh no, dude, he was almost unkillable. Of course, I mean the cheese for that is just summon. But yeah. So
the last thought on the last word I have on this is that whenever people try to sandbag me for beating Millennia the way I did, I'm like, hey, listen, is she dead? Yes. Am I alive? Yes. Then I did it. All right. That's the point. That's it. Right.
Won.
Man,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the sound of all these runes jingling in my pocket.
Right? Jeez. All right. So Tears of the Kingdom.
And now back to our scheduled program.
So I'm gonna throw the ball over to Wiley for this one, since he didn't play Elden Ring. So he'll have the floor for this next subject. how are you feeling when it comes to like this is the one thing I wanted to talk about because you brought this up earlier in the stream. How are we feeling? But Wiley goes first on how the game runs for Tears of the Kingdom, because I'm honestly incredibly impressed by how Tears of the Kingdom is running. And I'm the first one to say when we saw that $70 price tag, I'm like, man, but this is a Switch game. People are like, oh, it's gonna be big, it's gonna be big. I'm like, I'm not talking about that though. It can have the most content out of any game I've ever played in the Switch. Man, Smash Bros was $60. But I'm talking about how the game runs. And after seeing how the game runs, I'm like, okay, I understand the $70 price tag now. So how are we feeling on that, Wiley?
Well, I first of all, I love I'm getting roasted because I haven't played Elden Ring yet. I haven't felt this kind of love since high school. Well, I should give it a shot, truly.
Please.
But first, Resident Evil 4 Remake. Almost done. But yeah, how does it run, and is it any good? Surprisingly, it's good, but we've only seen we've only seen gameplay in a very
controlled area.
Controlled area, yeah. Like, for example, in Breath of the Wild, it runs great almost everywhere except for a couple of places, mostly the Master Sword, obviously.
Core Force.
Yeah. And to be honest, I'm surprised that it runs so well, because the Nintendo Switch really isn't... The Nintendo Switch is mostly great in terms of concept, and the hardware behind it back in the day really was good. But even when it came out, it was already a bit on the old side. I mean, the Tegra X1 is nothing more than stuff that was thrown together from 2014 and 15 with a bit of a update, and then it was 2016 it came out. You know?
Yeah, see, this is why I give the floor to you, because I know you know a bunch of all this like technological stuff.
Yes, I'm really a stickler for this kind of stuff, and I find it fascinating as well how especially handhelds, how they run, you know. And it's also just like the RAM is also very low, 4 gigabytes, and I think it's even DDR3, which is laughable.
Oh, stop,
nowadays.
man, stop! The more you describe this, I'm like, oh man, what is this console,
I'm not
bro?
sure if it's DDR3 though. I know it's only 4 gigs. That's certain. 4 gigs is certain, and I think it's DDR3 mostly because the Steam Deck that came out in 2021 has 16 gigabytes of DDR4, so I don't expect it to be better than, or it's very slow DDR4 that the Switch has. Either of the two. But yeah, I'm surprised it runs so well, and obviously they use some hidden loading screens, and I'm curious how often they will be using hidden loading screens. I think the whole, you know, when you use the ability where you can go through stuff, I think that's also kind of a hidden loading screen in some instances. Because
it's pretty.
It takes quite a while, you know. So I think that's kind of the trickery they're using to make sure it loads well, and most likely the render distance and detail of Hyrule below, you know, when you look over the edge, it's not going to be the greatest, you know. It's as expected, because they're loading half the world at that point, probably, depending on where you are and what angle you're looking at. And as somebody mentions in the comments now as well, did you see the water though? The water also looks good and slightly improved actually over Breath of the Wild. I can see some improvements over Breath of the Wild in general, which is to be expected because they understand the hardware better. You saw the same with basically every other console. PlayStation 4 had this as well in the beginning. It was significantly less impressive than near the end, you know, especially if you take games like Uncharted. That's where you can see really well how they got better and better at like getting the most juice out of the hardware. So I'm impressed if they pulled this off, but I think this is the last hooray for the Switch. It really is. They must come with something new. Personally, I own a Steam Deck now, and it's like the Steam Deck is so far ahead of the Switch, it's laughable. It's in no way comparable. But still, I'm really impressed they pulled this off. I didn't expect them to be able to. I thought there would be more of a loading screen in between, or, well, they've just gotten really good at hiding loading screens with the going up and down. And I'm curious how the caves will go. I don't expect the caves to be ready. I think that will just be just like the shrines, you know, just you kind of, whoop-de-doop-de-doo, you get a little scene and it loads it. I think that will be 100% the case with caves, because otherwise it just that's too much.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the caves probably, that's where we'll see a bit of maybe loading. We know that there's that like huge underground cavern in the past trailer. They might also only have like a fraction of Sky Islands, and they might have like a separate, realm that we've already talked about in past videos, maybe the Sacred Realm or, wherever the dragons fly to. But they might have a loading screen between that and this new realm, and then, like, that'll have a lot more Sky Islands. So maybe they divide them up a bit.
Right. And then possibly that, I feel that maybe, because, I mean, we've seen how, or we have an idea, I should say, of how high these islands go from each trailer and whatnot, and they start to get pretty high. And maybe, like, when it comes to a certain altitude, there's going to be, like, a hidden type of loading towards that. And, like, when thinking about using the recall ability, you know how everything kind of goes gray? Like, what if that's, like, a hidden way for them to load up everything as you're rising up?
That could also very well help with loading, because
it's like you take all the color away. So I mean, like, that's one less thing to render.
But it seems like nothing moves as well except you and the block. It seems like everything kind of freezes in time, which is very handy when you want to render from one end to the other.
Yeah.
But we'll kind of have to see when we get the game how it will exactly do that, because then we can just look down while it goes up, so we can see when the render distance and stuff starts popping out, and we can also just experience, all right, if we drop down now from a certain angle at a certain time after loading all this, does it, like, kind of
Digital
lag,
Foundry is gonna have a field day with this.
It's
by the way, everything does move, by the way, when you reverse time.
Oh, it does?
It does?
Yeah.
I thought they just made it sure it didn't, so that would give them extra trickage.
Because when he reverses the spike ball, you can still see the enemies walking.
Oh, yeah.
In the second trailer,
Yeah,
the second trailer, so...
why am I such a dummy?
If the islands, it is all one place and they go really high up, what they might also do is have it where once Link reaches a certain altitude, he just goes above, like, a little barrier of clouds, and then they can like unload stuff below.
Yeah, it's like Skyward Sword did. Like the same trickery as Skyward Sword. They could even go for what they did with Skyward Sword, but make it more thinly veiled, so it's a thin veil of, like, clouds.
That's what I think.
That way they can make sure that stuff below is to an extent rendered, but nowhere near at an impressive rate. But the clouds kind of obscure it, so it doesn't really matter that much.
And I don't know if you guys have noticed, because this is something that could attribute to that, is that in the trailers and even in the gameplay, when you reach the Sky Islands, it's a completely different filter from what we see, from what we're used to on the ground with Breath of the Wild, right? It's all much more clearer blue filter, but then when you get close to the ground, when you're diving down, it becomes more of that green filter that we're used to with Breath of the Wild, right? So maybe that's another way for them to attribute, like, where the cutoff line is for loading when going from the sky to the ground or the surface, wherever you want to call it.
That's 100% used internally as well. I mean, in video game design, regardless, you have that internally, because especially in a 3D game, otherwise you have no idea what's where.
Yeah.
And I bet they already had that kind of system already completely developed in Breath of the Wild, because you have the physics engine.
Yeah.
So you can just charge up stuff, and it needs to have a certain velocity, and it just moves in a certain direction, etc. So all of that was most likely already in the game, because they needed that for the physics engine to function. Otherwise, they can't do the most basic math for it.
Oof.
I suspect that they probably just improved the dynamic loading of the original engine, because in the way Breath of the Wild worked was that once something is very far away, it just loads a secondary version of it, like a low poly version of it. But there's only two states. Like, if you look into the game files, it has, like, statue, like dragon statue, and then it has, like, dragon statue far. That's what the name.
Kind of like in Ocarina of Time and Super Mario 64.
Yeah, where you have that one where if Mario, like, walks at a certain angle, certain distance, it turns into the super weird low poly version.
Yeah. And I think they probably just expanded that. Maybe they added, like, 4 more steps to that, where it's like, if it's really, really far away, when you're, like,
more
super
gradual.
high up, it will just be a 2D image at that point.
And they can easily do that as well. I mean, like I said, like, as time goes on, you understand the hardware better and better and better. And while the NVIDIA chipset that they used in a Nintendo Switch was used for gaming before in other devices, it was never used for dedicated gaming, because it was based on, like, Android stuff, but they made their own custom stuff, because Android can't really push that far. Yeah. That's why you can also, if you want, like, you can mod a Nintendo Switch that it runs a form of Android, and through that you can hack it, like they found out really early on, because there's just, like, a bit of sort of Android backdoor. But running on Android is very shitty, to be honest, because Android is not made for running games. Like it runs stuff on phone to an extent fine, but it's nowhere near the power that it could be. And so they made custom software mostly for it. And I bet they improved that software, with the updates that the device has had. They've improved individual engines for that software, like the Breath of the Wild engine. And one of the other big things, they don't have to worry about the Wii U. Like the Wii U was to an extent what they could with the game, a limitation, because the Wii U just couldn't handle that much compared to the Nintendo Switch, which was quite magical for it being a handheld, obviously. But I think that was also a big limiting factor on what they could do with the game, and now they can do more because the Wii U really doesn't matter anymore.
Like mastering the engine is just so important, and they already know their hardware way better than second or third party developers, maybe except for Monolith Soft, because they're just
they are monsters, bro.
They're just magicians. They got like Xenoblade Chronicles X on Wii U is still one of the biggest overworlds ever made.
Well, I mean, it's already. I think I'm not sure about this, but I'm pretty sure about it. Like 80%. I think Monolith also helped Nintendo with Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
Like for optimization.
Yeah.
So that already shows that basically the two companies or the two development teams that understand the most about how this device works and the engines that can be built on it and exist on it are creating Tears of the Kingdom, which I have high hopes, to be honest, for how it will run. I don't expect like Steam Deck, don't get me wrong, but I don't expect it to run bad or anything like insane frame rate dips or like constantly, or if you turn the camera too fast and then jump down, for example, that is just too much for the CPU like bandwidth to handle and it just crashes or like kind of stutters like it does when you speedrun Breath of the Wild and you do the bomb flying glitch and you go really fast and sometimes it just stops. Load, and continues. I don't expect that at all.
Yeah. As someone who cheats in my speed to get to places quickly for recording footage, yes, I feel that.
Hell yeah, brother.
Man,
but like,
I don't want to see any of those previous problems, man. Go ahead.
Exactly. I wonder how fast we'll be able to travel. Like, what if we can create like a Zonai jet, and like then they'll have to change the engine to allow Link to travel that fast? Because like Will said, or I can't remember who said it. If you travel past a certain speed in Breath of the Wild, it freezes and loads in the next area, and then you move, and then it freezes.
Sometimes you can get to areas and like cutscenes won't trigger. I've had that happen, and as well, like NPCs are just not there. But like, from what we've seen, it runs like it looks like it runs perfectly. However, I feel like we really need to see because there's probably going to be those couple locations. Like, it's like, okay, well, are we going to have another Korok Forest situation?
Oh, God.
That's why they just removed Korok Forest altogether. Like,
they burned that shit to the ground.
They were having performance issues, and they're like, oh, hold on, delete Korok Forest.
It's like, we're not dealing with this anymore.
We need a lore reason to destroy Korok Forest. You know what? Ganondorf just shot a gigantic catapult and destroyed everything. It's gone.
But I also we need to see how it looks like with like more particles at once, like on the screen, and maybe when it's storming and stuff. Because like when you're running through in Breath of the Wild and there's lightning, I'm pretty sure it gets really choppy. It gets really slow.
Mm-hmm.
You get the frame rate dips, and you get the frame timing becomes a bit bad, so it becomes very like stuttery due to frame timing.
Yeah, and that means if you get hit and you're unlucky, you slowly watch your demise, and the pain
you fall real slow to the ground. It goes like you're running around and it's like 22 frames per second, something like that. Below 24, you can see it's not smooth anymore, but not horrendous. And then you get hit by lightning, and you just go to 10.
Yeah, so it really depends. We'd have to see those specific locations that would be more demanding.
Yeah, I think in some cases we will see a bit of a slowdown, just like we saw in Breath of the Wild. But I think it will run better than Breath of the Wild. But I think if we're really gonna like push it to its limit, and that's mostly by using glitches, because obviously a lot of the glitches from Breath of the Wild, I expect them to still work, or they're gonna be reworked slightly and they work again. I think if you combine like the glitch stuff they have found in Breath of the Wild, and if that's possible, like the bomb gliding. With this game, then we might actually run into territory where we gain so much speed that they're just like the old Nintendo 64s had with Super Mario 64, if you go too fast, it crashes.
Right.
I think
go to a
that will
parallel
be
universe.
possible in this game. There's a good chance.
But
if they
just-
kept, sorry,
Wait,
if
no,
they
go on.
kept,
Sorry, no, you go on.
yeah, if they kept those glitches, didn't change them much, speedruns could look insane.
Yeah, but they would have to change
yeah.
the physics engines in order to fix it, so they're not gonna fix it.
But here's the thing that I want to bring up on the stream like earlier, where I'm like, okay, we're gonna get to that later. You guys are talking about these strategies that require bombs and stasis. What if
that's true.
what if we don't get those back in Tears of the Kingdom?
Yes. Well, I mean,
So, like-
yeah. Well, I mean, the only
I
thing we
think
kind of
No
need
more
for
square bombs.
Yeah, no bomb bowling. No, it was gone.
I mean, the only thing we kind of need for like most of the fun glitches, or ones that at least have speed in it, the most important ones, we need the bullet time stuff to come back. That
Flurry
needs to
Rush.
be in it. That's very, very, very important. If that's not in the game,
Oh no,
then all
Flourish.
this
I
stuff
feel
is off the table.
Flourish is
will
gonna
be
be
in
back.
the game, obviously. It
It's
will be
still
in the game.
game. Yeah,
And we
it's
need
in the patents too.
any form of explosive, and that's
Yeah.
it. So if we don't get bombs, like if we can't spawn bombs out of nowhere, it's just, you can still do it, but we'll have very limited locations where we can, because we need to find some form of explosive to use.
I think that's also one reason why I think there will be more. Like the 4 powers we've
Right.
seen now are not the be all end all of it, and this time they will actually bring back some sort of an item progression. Because if you look at the concept art for Breath of the Wild, there were so many more powers on the table. They had his fist turns into a giant hammer. He has like a beetle type of, like from Skyward Sword, a beetle type of contraption. He has a arm cannon that shoots bombs.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we might
hook
see that.
shots were planned as well.
Yeah,
New
grappling
tricks!
So
hooks.
much.
I want to see hook shots. I don't care if the paraglider's already in the game, but like hook shots are so
Man,
satisfying. To use.
I like.
They said
but-
they didn't put hook shots in because it broke.
It broke Breath of the Wild,
But, like,
yeah.
Yes,
clearly,
yes,
clearly they
why not?
did.
Anywhere.
I think I know how it would break the game, actually. Now that you mentioned the hook
Boys,
shots.
I don't think they're coming back. I don't think they're coming back.
Yeah, but let's say you
I
put
think
hook
they
shots
are.
in
Hook shots,
Tears
yeah.
of the Kingdom. Like, let's say you have a hook shot in Tears of the Kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a surface where you can use it on. If you have an enemy close to it, you could go into bullet time and time it perfectly that you get out of that flurry rush, and do the grappling hook so that it pulls you as
Wow,
you get out,
that's
and then
sick,
maybe
yeah.
you can even clip through walls because you have so much.
No,
freaking speed. So I
stop
get why
it!
they didn't include it.
Oh my god.
I can imagine it breaking it that way, 100%.
I'm sure they can work around that in some way. Maybe
They didn't work around it with the bombs. So.
Imagine.
maybe the hookshot doesn't work with bullet time though.
Nah,
They
could
do
totally-
that.
right, because you
But
can't
then
you can't use the
could
bow and arrow in
potentially
bullet
hack
time,
the
right?
buttons.
You
Huh?
can use the bow and arrow.
You
but
can?
Maybe,
Yes,
I never tried. Well, I mean, no, I don't mean the flurry rush where you jump and then you use the bow and arrow flurry rush. I'm talking about like when you dodge an enemy, can you pull out the bow after that?
Yeah. You can pull out the bow during flurry rush. That's not a
Oh.
problem. And even if they would,
I
change
never
it where you
tried.
can't-
Like,
you should. It's very good. You can make an easy headshot. But I think if they even made it that you can't use the hook shot during a flurry rush, there will be a way to override it. Like there will be another trick that comes before that overrides it,
of course,
and
but
then
that's
you
a
can
given.
unlock it.
you know,
There's
I'm
Like,
just
always
like
gonna
a bottle switch, which we have already seen. I'm not sure. Can you do
Pe-
bottle?
Bro,
swap?
people bounced off of Bokoblins' heads to
Yeah,
gain
that's also
speed.
good
Like,
enough.
how did people even find that out? That's
It-
insane.
It
It
all
would
just
be-
has to do with how fast it throws you off, and then when you get out of flurry rush, it just multiplies speed by a certain amount with how much it's slow mode, and then it just catapults you away. It's very simple.
you know,
They definitely need to like I doubt they would get rid of bullet time, but it would be really cool if they could like innovate on it and rework it to somehow fit in puzzles and stuff. Like that would be really cool.
that would require some big brain stuff. But I'm just like thinking about how you guys are just like planning to use like the flurry rush with the hook shot if they put it into the kingdom. Imagine we go to like one of those Zonai altars and it turns out to be like a major test of strength. And if you guys are fighting against a robot, you activate flurry rush, you use the hook shot, you get out of bounds, and then like there's nothing there outside the wall, and you just keep falling into nothing. That's
Well,
what
I mean,
y'all are
like-
gonna do.
See?
It depends if maps are like connected, because if you look at, for example, a game like Majora's Mask, and this is something they still do to an extent, maps are connected. So you can, if you go out of bounds in a fairy fountain, you can walk into a certain direction, and then it will trigger a loading screen of another fairy fountain. So it could be like if they have, for example, certain things on the same map. If you get out of bounds, you could just walk to another, and it will just trigger a loading screen.
I'm pretty sure that's still how you get the world record in A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Is you clip out of bounds, you just walk to the Triforce room at the end of the game.
Yeah, the 2D games also have this trick, even worse, because like for some reason they thought that was a good idea. For example,
man, I'm talking about like, you know, shooting yourself out of the cannon in like, you know, Jolly Roger Bay in Super Mario 64, and you clip through the wall and there's nothing there. There's nothing to walk towards or anything.
Well, I do want Super Mario 64 music if that happens, though.
Oh man. But we've been talking for a good we've been talking for more than 2 hours. So let's go ahead and wrap up with this final subject. And then maybe if we have a little bit more time, we'll take a little bit of Q&A. So the final subject that I want to bring up to each one of you guys, and I'm going to start off with Monster Maze this time, is that despite what we've seen with Tears of the Kingdom's gameplay aspects, everything, what is something that, like, you know, from the flavors, from what we've seen, like, you know, to give you an idea of what Tears of the Kingdom could entail, what is something that you want to see when they, you know, talk about or reveal of the game next? Do you want to see them look at dungeons? Do you want to see them expand more on powers or talk about the intricacies of fusion? What's one thing that you want to see them talk about in the next gameplay advent?
Sorry, do you mind if I quickly interject here? Maybe first ask Wily.
Wily needs to
he needs to go.
Oh, okay, yeah, no.
Just ask him first.
All right. So Wily and then Zeltic, all right? So go ahead, Wily.
Give me a TLDR again, my brain.
All right. So from everything we've seen with Tears of the Kingdom's gameplay already, what's something that you want them to tackle in the next gameplay showing that you want them to talk about, like dungeons, caves? All right, yeah.
I want very linear content. Like Breath of the Wild has a lot of freedom, and I love it for that. But I also love little linear things, you know, fun little thrill rides, a fun little roller coaster. Especially now I'm playing Resident Evil again. Yeah, I am. So I would love for them to show off, for example, a cave system.
Okay.
Like something a bit linear, like, because this was just a bit messing around with the new powers, fun and all. But I really would like them to just go through a cave, like, hello, this is the cave, yippee-ki-yay, or like some sort of challenge type setting.
Ooh, all right.
And like
Bloody Palace.
I don't know, like something very linear, like just like how they showed off shrines and stuff like that with the Great Plateau, for example. Stuff like that. Like, how are those experiences? Because while Breath of the Wild was cool, it was lacking in the dungeon department. And this game is supposed to be spooky, so I would love to see, like, if they go through a cave setting and it has a bit of that spooky, eerie setting and, like, good lighting and the music and maybe some echoes from drips and drops from water.
I would love that.
Stuff like that, you know, like, they're very good with audio design, so I would love to see that. And with that, I am going to say that I will leave now. All
right, tell them where they can find you before you go.
Yes, you can find me on Dr. Wily here on YouTube. I do fun little Zelda videos, sometimes little weird rumors, other times I talk about Tears of the Kingdom, and other times it's theories and lore stuff. And I also do Mario, so if you're like into game design, Mario specific, or lore, I'm your guy.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Wily, for being here. I appreciate you.
No problem. Have a good evening, everybody. Well, day. I mean, it's not an evening there.
Later.
It's Europe. Bye, everybody. I love you all. Little kiss from Papa.
They didn't even play Elden Ring. Anyways.
Right? All right. So now I'm gonna throw the ball over to Zeltic because I know you have to go too. So same question over to you.
Right. So I think I'm going to be boring and parrot. I think it was Jordan that said the main problem with Breath of the Wild, or one of the main problems for me, was that it was kind of juxtaposed in that the shrines were so good, in that there's such a variety of them and the puzzles are so interesting, and I just love the concept of shrines. But I think it was Jordan that was saying they're let down so much by having the same design every single time, and they're always this kind of very clean, very clinical looking, and it's always the same. You know you're going to get the exact same thing with every single shrine. So I think what would really, really sell me on Tears of the Kingdom, like I need selling on it anymore, but What would really get me going is seeing proper dungeons that have themes. I think that's the most important thing for me.
Ooh, yeah.
Not just in that you get a fire temple and a water temple, but like,
but why
that
not?
the fire temple was something. Like the fire temple was maybe an old Goron mine, and you can kind of see the history of it. Like dungeons like the Arbiter's Grounds, or you know, the Shadow Temple or Forest Temple, where like you get little glimpses into what it was before Link was there. Which is something that you just don't get with the shrines, because they are specifically designed for this purpose. You know exactly everything about their history when you're going in, that they're built to test the hero and to train him up and all that. Whereas I like dungeons that have got a bit of character. So like my personal favorite Zelda dungeon of all of them is Forest Temple.
Nice.
From Ocarina of Time, obviously, just because you don't know what it is, but the atmosphere is designed in such a way that you find yourself asking questions, and there's never an answer to the question, which is why it's so interesting. So I'd love to see dungeons that have got a bit more character. So like I said, like themed dungeons. I think that's probably the most important thing for me.
Kind of like Snow Peak.
Like Snow Peak, exactly. Yeah. Dungeons like that. If we're bringing dungeons back, I want dungeons with story and character. You know, dungeons that leave an impression.
Right, I'm completely down for that.
Just quickly add this. You know how in games like Portal, where like you go through all these facilities, and then eventually like you leave the out of bounds area and you explore. Like you were just talking about, shrines didn't have variety. Imagine if one shrine you went down, but it was like completely broken, the lights weren't on, and there were like vines growing everywhere and stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
that would be sick. Anyways,
yeah. I mean, like even the early concept art for shrines looked more interesting than what we got, when it was kind of it was more like Egyptian themed. It was all kind of sandy, and there were ideas like they were going to have carvings on the wall that had been made there by previous adventurers, which is just awesome. You'd get like messages that had been left to you by some other, maybe not an incarnation of Link, but some other like adventurer who'd explored that hidden shrine before.
It's like, turn back now.
Yeah, just something that gives it a bit more depth and makes it feel a bit more real. Because shrines, like, they're very well designed from a gameplay perspective, obviously, but
from a design perspective.
From a design perspective, yeah, but there isn't much of a kind of coat of paint on them that hides that they are just kind of parts of the game, if you get what I mean. There's
I understand 100%.
Yeah, so that's the main thing that I'd like to see. But anyway, unfortunately, like Dr. Wily, I am going to have to dip as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure talking Tears of the Kingdom with all you boys. I'll take any excuse to gush about this game. Thank you, HMK, for inviting us all on as well.
Of course. Let them know where they can find you before you go, though.
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube at Zeltic. You can find me at. I do lore and theory content, and you know, there's going to be a lot more of that going into Tears of the Kingdom. So yeah, stay tuned for more, I guess.
Oh man, I'm always waiting. To you all. Of course, man. Thank you so much for coming.
I'll catch you all later. Nice to see you. Bye, bye, chat as well. Thanks for tuning in. See you later.
See you, man.
And there he goes. And then there were 4. All right, so I'm actually gonna throw the question over to the original recipient before those 2 had to go. Monster Maze, what is something that you want to see in the next version?
Jordan wanted to go first because he also has to.
Jordan gotta go too. All right, nah, go ahead.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, right. Bro. It happens when we chat for 2 hours. And
it does.
So, hey, time passes when you have fun.
Exactly. All right. So the question was, what's the one thing you want to see Nintendo talk about in the next gameplay showing for Tears of the Kingdom? We got a good chunk of what we just saw. So what do you want to see them tackle? The next thing that you want to that's there, but that you want to see them talk about?
Dungeons.
Of course,
dungeons, man. That's it. I know. Has that been said twice so far?
No.
But I mean, dungeons are because the biggest questions coming out of Breath of the Wild were dungeons and combat, really. Mm-hmm. That and new areas. But I mean, really, honestly, I don't want to see a whole bunch more as far as new areas are concerned. I feel like that directly takes away from that essence of exploration, at least a little bit. But as far as showcasing something to be excited about, I want to see like Link just walks somewhere and picks up a small key, because all of a sudden that just proves so much. It's like, oh my god. And I know we had some small keys in shrines, But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I want him to pick up a rusty ass old key that doesn't look like it's some intricate Sheikah thing. I want it to be like, ooh, this is a dungeon. We're going to have to use these new gameplay isms that we just saw this week in entirely new ways. We're going to have to swim upwards and all that stuff. That's what I want to see.
Nice.
And then he just puts it with cooking materials in a pot and makes a dish.
Absolutely.
Burning
them,
expectations.
if you will. Yes, absolutely. Because if you can't do that, is it truly open world? I want my money back if you can't cook a small key.
It's not open world, it's open air. Nintendo has said this before.
That's true. Sorry, I got to get with the new terms. Open air, strand type, the list just keeps going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that's what I want to see, man.
All right, man. Yo, and thank you so much for coming on out. Before you go, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, sir. And you can find me at Bandit Games on YouTube. And yeah, that's about all she wrote. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you guys later.
Oh, of course. I'll see you soon, all right?
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And then there were 3. All right, so
Oh yeah.
I'm about to throw this question over to Monster Maze. NBC, do I have to give it to you first before you go?
No,
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. 6 p.m., bro.
Yeah, that's right. It is just 6 p.m. But I don't want to take too much time.
And I'm jet lagged, so for me, it doesn't matter what time I go to bed anyway, because my body just doesn't.
Nah, you need sleep, bro. You need sleep. So
But,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So I'm a bit conflicted about it because on the one hand, I don't want to see a lot about the new environments. I want as much as possible to be just like the story. I just want a lot of it to be a surprise. So if they do show a dungeon, because that for me that's also one of the more important ones. They have to either show it in a way where it's like completely out of context and it's like maybe one of the earlier dungeons, or even if they just say it, they maybe like Wiley said, they do a little cave exploration session. And they at least say or at least explain like, hey, there's gonna be bigger dungeons. That's already pretty cool. I also would love to see. I think someone in chat on YouTube already mentioned it. Like, oh yeah, Marina said that. It's like I want to see if we can swim underwater. If there's any underwater stuff in the game, that would be that's pretty important to me too. Not that I'm like the biggest fan of water dungeons, but there's so much, like there's so many bodies of water in Breath of the Wild's overworld. Just being able to go to the bottom, finally being able to see what's at the bottom of Lake Hylia or some of the oceans, that would already make the surface world a lot more relevant. Because suddenly you're gonna be thinking to yourself, oh yeah, I remember that pond in Breath of the Wild. I wonder what's at the bottom there, like Skull Lake or
Korok seed.
Yeah, there's gonna be a Korok seed there. Yeah.
Yeah, just like a couple. But what was I gonna say?
Man, I just want this whole Tears of the Kingdom is Breath of the Wild DLC. I just want this to be put to rest.
Oh my god, yes.
The last gameplay demonstration didn't quite do that just yet because they only visited like one island and they showed a few new abilities.
And you know what's the weirdest thing about that? People are gauging the entirety of the game from that small section, and I'm like, why? Yeah. Like I don't get it.
It's so weird because we all know that we've probably only seen about 1% of the game's content.
Not even,
so
bro. Not even.
Not even. Yeah, not even. So there's so much crazy stuff hidden in this world. I just know that they're not gonna spend. This is Nintendo. Like the Zelda team has a reputation. How many times more do they have to prove themselves before we finally just accept like, yeah, it's gonna slap either way. And they didn't spend 6 years putting some islands above Hyrule and give you 4 new abilities. That's ridiculous. Of course not.
Right.
If they didn't care, they wouldn't have delayed it several times.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want this whole discussion. I just want to do a little dance one and just shut the haters up once this game finally comes out and we're like, told you so. Just have that little moment.
Man, I'm already saying like told you so in my head because I mean if you know, you know, right? But that's like I honestly I would I would like underwater sections within Tears of the Kingdom. I'm not exactly gunning for it. A lot of people has been like really, really, really wanting underwater sections, and I'm like, like, you know, if it's there, cool. If it's not, I'm like, you know, no spilled milk for me. But
you don't like the idea of like finding some sort of sunken Atlantis at one of the oceans, or
like Atlantis that's a lot, you know, like for Tears of the, I feel for Tears of the Kingdom that's a lot. But an underwater dungeon, maybe if Atlantis was the dungeon, then okay, I get it, right? Like I'm not expecting, nor do I, you know, truly, I'm in need of like every underwater area within that of Breath of the Wild to be explorable. If they decide to have like one big chunk of water, is like, hey, this area you can dive down because there's something down there, right? You know, kind of like Lake Hylia is like, oh, you go down there, there's the Lake Bed Temple or the Water Temple from Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, whatever. Then that's fine, right? But I'm not like, oh, every area of every bottle of water I should be able to swim under. I'm like, but I mean, what could truly be down there? You know, plants. like Will said, a Korok seed. I'm like, you know, truly, I'm not for want with that, considering how Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild is built. I'm not for want for underwater sections. I really am not. But I mean, like, if it happens, cool. But I'm not like, oh yeah, if you put that in the ruin the game, like, no, I'm kind of like, what's the word? God, I'm brain farting here. Like, I'm indifferent either way. There you go. I'm indifferent either way. But
so if it's there, it's there, and you'll
like it's nice if they have it, but it's not a big deal if they don't.
Exactly. That's where I stand on it.
I do like the idea, at least. I see the potential, let's just say, but it all depends on how they handle the underwater physics, because that's usually the biggest crux of underwater exploration. Is it's slow, it's kind of, you know, you don't feel as mobile as you are above water. You prefer to be just above water.
Right.
But if he has some sort of outfit or some sort of new power that just allows you to walk at the same speed, and it's just a little bit more free flowing, then I am totally down for it. But it really all depends.
I mean, like the Zora outfit was able to make you swim up waterfalls. That was insane. Like that was cool. Yeah.
And there's a small indication that there might be. I'm sure some of you have seen the videos, and I think Will's the one who told me about it. Like, the ascend ability might be something we will be able to use underwater.
Yeah. So like Andres Restart did like a freeze frame of when Link hits the water from the Tears of the Kingdom gameplay demo, where the ascend option was lit up for a little bit, right? And I'm like, That's very
kind of sus,
right?
It considers the surface of the water a ceiling, and the moment he reaches it, it just, it goes back to normal. And yeah, I guess technically you could consider that just a button where you can press it, and he quickly goes up to the surface when he's swimming. But already by default, I think he doesn't. There's never really a case where he's super deep in the water. So
right, but then a lot of people think that suggests the fact that, like, hey, if you're underwater under a certain amount and you're going through it, you could just use ascent to get back to the top, right? So a lot of people are saying it's like, oh yeah, underwater confirmed, which I do get that line of thinking, but maybe it was just one of those things, because I'm pretty sure, like, even though Aonuma said that the game has gone gold, I'm pretty sure he was playing a build which wasn't the final build. And then that could have been like a discrepancy.
He's like, hold on, that boulder wasn't supposed to attach to my tree branch. Better take that out.
Right.
Well, they were definitely playing a build of the game that was manipulated in some way, because when he's standing on Blattery Plain, like close to the stable with the horse at the very beginning, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, but the sun is way too high up. Like, I think they froze the sun's position, something like that. But I'm not too sure. But
the weather as well, it's always sunny. Like you see in the
always
bottom right. Sunny. When any real Breath of the Wild player knows that it's always rain.
But that's the thing. When you're in the Sky Islands, there will be no rain because you're above the clouds where the rain comes from.
They'll find a way, man.
I would be like, come on. Like, if that actually happens in Tears of the Kingdom.
And the rain just goes opposite, it just goes up.
Yeah, it's just like, bro, how's there rain? There's no clouds above me here. Like, how do I get hit by lightning? That's not how it works. Magic Zonai Rain.
I'm actually curious what you guys, what your guys' stance is on like how much they show, because some people really feel like they should be showing more, but then I think back at like the time when I first played Ocarina of Time, and then I didn't know anything about that game, so everything was a huge surprise to me. Like, I didn't know there was going to be an underwater dungeon. I didn't know there was going to be this boss or this ability. I didn't even know there was going to be a hookshot in the game. I knew nothing about that game, and it did contribute to that. Same goes for Elden Ring, by the way. They managed
a lot of
to hide
mystique.
a lot of stuff.
Elden Ring. They didn't even talk about anything in Elden Ring, bro.
Yeah, like the stuff we saw was very, very strategically picked to make sure that they didn't reveal too much, and I'm very happy they did. So I hope, on the one hand, I hope they show, if they do show stuff, like if they have more of these little presentations, like 10-minute gameplay demonstrations, I hope they keep showing it in a way where it's like very much out of context, where you don't know, like they play a specific build where they don't show any changes in the overworld, because I'm sure there's going to be huge story elements to this game.
Can I mind if I
wait? Let me put a pause on you really quick. Chummy Buds, thank you so much for 1,000 yen. Thank you so much for hosting. Is the weather changes in Tears of the Kingdom, or is it gonna stay sunny? We actually talked about that a little bit, and I believe above the clouds is always gonna be sunny or moony, or like nightfall, whatever you want to call that. And I was just saying, like there better not be any weather BS above the clouds, because that's not how weather works. But thank you so much for 1,000 yen. I'm sure you're gonna use them when I go to Japan this May. So go ahead, NBC.
So if we're technically talking about things that we haven't seen or haven't seen much of, definitely what I want to see in the next demonstration is like exploring an underground chasm or something, or obviously a bit of a traditional dungeon. However, the one concern, it sort of lines up with what Don was talking about. The one concern I still have is I'm worried that the surface of Hyrule is still going to feel too similar. Because when he starts the presentation, he's like, oh yeah, so we're here in Tears of the Kingdom. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Breath of the Wild, you know? That's Dueling Peaks. Now, though, like Don said, they're very intentional with it. They probably have minimal changes there because they don't want to reveal too much. So I just hope that they are still being very secretive with things, and I'm fine with that. But in the next one, I would like to see, because he's like, oh, I could talk about all the changes, but you know, we have 10 minutes or whatever. And I'm thinking, well, I would like to see you talk about a bit of it. But what would be absolutely amazing is if, like, as you progress through the game, like certain world events happen that completely change things up. Like we talked about at the very beginning, but there's only a couple shots where you see those bunches of like pillars of malice going up. So like at one point in the game, do you progress so far where all of a sudden malice is erupting from all these holes, and then it changes up that world?
With each dungeon, more and more malice comes out.
And are they going to have it, imagine instead of like it's just a Blood Moon cutscene, if they had a whole night on rare occasions where it's just a whole Blood Moon event and they just had stuff happen? There are so many potential world adjustments, and it could like change up your experience every single time.
Right.
So
that would be cool.
That's literally really my only concern at this point, because like we have confirmation that the Zonai will definitely have some sort of involvement in the story. The gameplay looks amazing. I'm sure they're going to have more abilities and more uses of the abilities. It's just Hyrule surface. It's just the surface that I am still worried about.
It would make sense. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I feel from what we've seen with the most recent trailers and even that gameplay aspect, that the surface world of Hyrule has changed enough. And the fact that Nintendo is still being secretive of, you know, certain parts of the world that's like familiar. We have not seen Zora's Domain. We have not seen Gerudo Desert. And the fact that Korok Forest is gone. I'm just like, I feel there's going to be change. I mean, obviously, the general skeleton, the map, the topography of Hyrule is going to be generally the same, because it's the same, you know, it's the same Hyrule, right? But there's going to be such massive changes where it's like, hey, if I go back to this place, I know this is the difference. And I know that there's going to be a lot of content creators like, hey, we went here in Tears of the Kingdom, this familiar spot from Breath of the Wild. This is how it's changed. I'm like from the last couple of trailers, I am confident that the world of Hyrule on the surface has gone through massive changes. I'm confident.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I definitely am optimistic about that because, like, they are aware that how big Breath of the Wild's world is and how revisiting that can feel, a bit stale. And I feel like the fact that they really went beyond our expectations with the gameplay mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
We should go in with that mindset that, like, okay, they have that same care and thought put into the world, so they're probably just being very secretive about it.
Yeah.
And if not, then, well, I mean, it's a flaw, but I'm sure the game is still going to be really good. So,
oh, I want to
Yeah,
do
I
something.
mean, if it has like plenty of great islands and caves and underground, like under Hyrule, there's stuff, underwater, there's stuff, then yeah, it might be a little bit of an empty space. Like the old overworld might be a little bit of a dead weight to the game's content, but I think they could solve that if the world itself is more dynamic, because that's one thing that I really missed about Breath of the Wild is everybody's just chilling. Like the world is the world is just it's on the brink of destruction. Nobody seems to notice or even care about it. Everybody's just going about their day, and they have like little day and night routines that they do, but there's not a whole lot that changes in Breath of the Wild's overworld. Whereas in Tears of the Kingdom, I hope certain story events will just completely change certain things that happen. Like maybe Hylians will actually get off their ass and do something this time around. Cause,
you gotta be on the run, man. They're like Ganondorf's forces. They coming after you, man.
Yeah,
hey, no one using the bridge of Hylia no more with a giant Nikljj on it.
Like when Ganondorf says like eliminate this kingdom, like leave no survivors, I'm at least expecting that he's gonna do more than just sit on his throne inside of a castle somewhere.
Right.
I want to see things like, oh, maybe like Tarrey Town is suddenly under attack, and you get there, and it's
not
like a mission.
Tarrey Town.
Finally, we can see the legendary NPC with his Master Torch in action.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll be leading the charge.
I just want more involvement from Hyrule, since this is the closest the kingdom has ever come to like total annihilation. At least in Breath of the Wild, I could kind of understand because, Ganon it was 100 years ago. Most people who witnessed the calamity were dead by this point.
Yep.
Except for the Zora. But, that's why everybody was kind of chilling, because they didn't know that there was that the threat wasn't really over.
Yeah.
But in this game, I want there to be more of a relationship between Ganondorf and the inhabitants of Hyrule. Towns and just people in general reacting to his actions. And vice versa too, that Ganondorf, you might prevent something here. Like, because even Zant at least showed up halfway through the story and just suddenly he's there.
He did stuff, yeah.
Whereas Ganondorf historically has always been kind of like just the guy who's like, I'm gonna sit here in this castle now while you revert all my influence.
Well, in Wind Waker, he had a good reason for that. This is like, all right, my powers are kind of still stuck. All right, everyone do my shit, right? And then as soon as the powers are up, you're like, all right, it's time. But in that sense,
Ganondorf, it's like it's time just at the start. He's like, all right, I'm ready.
I want that.
Well,
I want that Ganondorf.
Ready to fight to you.
Yeah.
Especially in Ocarina of Time, there was no reason for him to hang back at the castle. Like he already won. He had the castle. Why didn't he attack Kakariko Village like directly or in any way? Instead, he's like, no, I'm just gonna play some sweet jams on my organ.
Well, because he kind of owned it already.
He can't carry his organ around. He's got to play that threatening music.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. You gotta get the organ music.
And I feel like it was way more of a political sense. We're not talking about politics here, but political sense for Ganondorf, where he's like, okay, I rule over Hyrule. I won. Even though I rule everything with Iron Fist, I can't go destroying shit. Even though I'm kind of all powerful, I don't want to deal with no headaches of an uprising. So I mean, kind of like that thing from 300 is like I am a benevolent god type shit. So that's why I think he didn't really give Kakariko Village the business. He's like, I own Gerudo area, I own this, I own that, I own Lon Lon Ranch. Like Kakariko, as long as they know who's in charge, then I don't gotta do shit, possibly stuff. But in that light, to wrap up the stream, when it comes to what you want to see in the next, because I'm pretty sure I have to get to NBC with that.
I did answer that.
You did or didn't?
I did. I talked about how I wanted to see underground caverns, or fictional dungeons, and then I mentioned my worry about the surface, and I want to see a bit more of that. So yeah,
awesome. So in my sense, what I want to see the most in the next gameplay thing is like it's one or two things. Either a dungeon, like just to get a lot of people to just straight up shut up. You know, either a dungeon. Maybe a preliminary boss fight. It doesn't have to be a dungeon boss. I like to see how Link fights a Nikljj. Or honestly, to be super reductive, I like to see Aonuma play the beginning of the game. I like to see that. You know, just straight up. You know, go find Ganondorf's section. Yeah. Go find Ganondorf's body. Ganondorf's body activates. The cutscene happens, and then yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I want to see that last one. I want to just the beginning to be a fresh experience.
All right. How about this then? How about this instead? What happens afterwards? Link already has the arm, but he's waking up from the business, right? So
I think
there.
I think that's more fair. Like he just got on the island, you know. Maybe he's talking to the first like robot NPC. I agree with a boss. That'd be amazing. However, again, I wouldn't want to see the Nikljj one. Maybe like the cube fight because it's in that kind of
Cubics,
sense. Yeah. But like it's just I want to like see the Nikljj and be like, all right, I don't know how to do this, but here we go.
Yeah, man. But I mean, like, in the same sense of the cube boss, I feel that the Nikljj is gonna be a multiple overworld boss. I think we're gonna fight a bunch of those cubes. Like, there's gonna be a bunch of cubes around the Sky Islands, and every time we beat one, we get something. And I feel like Nikljjs are gonna be a multiple thing, kind of like Taluses, Hinoxes, you know, things like that. That's what I think.
I think we already
did. Genshin Impact all over again. The
cube bosses. Oh my goodness, yo, did you pull for Dia?
Oh no.
Oh wow, you're horrible.
I haven't played in a long time. Last person I pulled for was Yu'lon.
Okay, all right. So right before Dia's ban.
But she's really fun. Yeah.
Oh no, she's super good.
Played. But yeah.
By the way, I think we saw one of those cube bosses already. Like there's obviously there's one in the recent trailer.
Yeah.
But in the gameplay footage, when he uses the ascend ability, you can see like a similar circular arena in the distance.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. On it. I think that's also one of them, and that might be where you get one of the crucial items. By defeating that guy, you get maybe the paraglider or something that you will need to. Because obviously, before you leave the tutorial island where Aonuma spends most of his time, you're probably gonna have to complete certain tasks, like you know, like we did on the Great Plateau. You had to do X amount of things before you could actually leave. I'm sure that's going to be the same there. So that cube boss might be one of those challenges that you overcome on those. But it's not the same cube monster that we saw in the trailer because the location doesn't match. So there's more of them for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be another huntable boss. That Kiltons are like, yes, the smell of cube, the smell of square, yes. Like I think it's going to be one of those things. Right.
Yeah, something you farm some sort of specific material from, maybe.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to like get myself a Nikljj flame and then attach it to and then fuse it to my sword. To like, oh, now it's on fire forever, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh God, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm so excited. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for today's stream. Thank you all so much for coming out to this amazing, explosive episode of The Fifth Dimension. But before I toss y'all to the wind, I'm going to throw the ball over to Monster Maze and Nintendo Black Crisis to let you guys know where you can find them. Monster Maze, let them know where they can find you.
You can find me on YouTube at Monster Maze. And if you want to dive into the cesspool that is Twitter, it's at Monster Maze YT.
Awesome, y'all. Thank you so much for coming on out, man.
Man, thank you so much for having me. It's always. This is like the fourth time. It never gets old. It's always great.
Oh, thank you.
By this point.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. A tradition I hope to upkeep.
If we get one more like big trailer, we got to do this one last time.
Like
of course.
Releases.
Oh yeah, literally a week before I go to Japan. Obviously, yep, instantly. But I think we're gonna have one every time they drop something new. Every time they drop a trailer, it's like, all right, boys, Friday, let's get it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, so Nintendo Black Crisis, let them know where they can find you.
If you're interested in theories and or other Zelda content, you can find my channel at Nintendo Black Crisis. And you can also find me over on Twitter. My name's slightly different. It's Nintendo Black Sea.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much once again for being part of the Fifth Dimensions episode.
No problem.
It's always
and,
fun.
and thanks to all the viewers who showed up. Really awesome, as always, to see the turnout.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy. Thank y'all so much for coming out to Twitch and YouTube. Now, before I toss y'all to the wind, the Fifth Dimension is not only a podcast, but it is a Twitch team that I run of aspiring, inspiring, and up-and-coming content creators. And if you want to make the jump from YouTube over to Twitch, we are going to raid Princess Yuki Rose, who is a resident VTuber of the Fifth Dimension, who is currently playing the Resident Evil 4 remake. So let's go ahead and go and show them our love until the next episode, until the next week, until the next dive into the Fifth Dimension. Always remember to be brave, dive deep, and enter the Fifth Dimension. We will check you guys later.